Chapter 947. In the corridor. Song Xiang's eyes flickered as he looked at the door of the massage room. Aside from admiration, he also felt a strong sense of gratefulness. Regardless of whether Tan Xiu could cure his mother or not, he was still grateful to Tan Xiu. After all, Tan Xiu was able to stay in the room with such a strong stench. "I'm convinced, brother." Song Yang panted heavily and looked at the door of the massage room with a bit of awe in his eyes. Song Xiang laughed loudly and said, "Now you're convinced. It would be a miracle if we could stay inside that stinky room for a few minutes. But Brother Tang is as if nothing happened to him. Just based on this point alone, it's enough for us to think highly of him." Song Yang nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and curiously asked, "What's going on inside, brother?" Also, the grayish-black substance on Mom's body isn't a special ointment developed by Tan Xiu, is it? "It should be." Song Xiang nodded. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour passed. More than an hour passed. Song Xiang and Song Yang were waiting outside the massage room when Song Guanghui hurried back from outside. When he saw his two sons standing at the door of the massage room, he slightly frowned and quickly asked, "Where's Tan Xiu? What are you doing here? Also, what's with this stench?" "Dad, Tan Xiu is treating Mom in the massage room," said Song Xiang. "This stench is coming from the massage room. It seems to be from some ointment used by Tan Xiu." Song Guanghui stared blankly and suddenly recalled Tan Xiu's identity as the young divine doctor. He immediately patted his forehead and said with annoyance, "Why didn't I think of it before? Tan Xiu is known as the young divine doctor of Chinese medicine in China. His medical skills should be very good. If he can really cure your mother's illness, that'll be great." Song Xiang poured cold water on him and said, "Dad, don't be so optimistic. Even if Tan Xiu is a miracle-working doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine circle of Huaxia, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to cure my mother. After all, cancer was not as easy to treat as other diseases. With the current medical standards, she had not heard of any hospitals and doctors who could cure patients in the middle and later stages of liver cancer. Unless a miracle happens." Song Guanghui's expression stiffened and he nodded solemnly. Finally, as the door was opened by Tan Xiu from the inside, Song Guanghui, Song Xiang, and Song Yang immediately looked at him. Looking at Tan Xiu's slightly tired face, Song Guanghui hurriedly asked, "Tan Xiu, how's your aunt? Is your treatment effective?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Uncle Song, don't worry. I've already cleared 2/3 of the cancer cells in my aunt's body. Only 1/3 is left. I'll stay in Saipan tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I'll treat her once a day for these 2 days, and I should be able to clear all the cancer cells in her body." "What did you say?" Song Guanghui's body shook and he involuntarily exclaimed. Song Xiang and Song Yang were tongue-tied and instantly petrified. They looked at Tan Xiu in shock and were speechless for a long time. "Cancer is actually not a serious disease for me," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I've also cured some patients in the middle and later stages of cancer, and they are all healthy now. Even if they can't live to 100 years old, they can still live for a few more decades." Song Guanghui grabbed Tan Xiu's arm and asked with a trembling voice, Really? Can you really remove all the cancer cells in your aunt's body? Can you really cure her completely?" "It's true." Tan Xiu could feel Song Guanghui's excitement and replied with a faint smile. Song Guanghui released Tan Xiu and raised his fists excitedly. He fiercely punched the air a few times and then said with a flushed face, "That's great. That's great. It's all my fault. Had I asked you for help earlier, I'm afraid your aunt's cancer would have been cured long ago. Thank you, Tan Xiu. Thank you so much." Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Uncle Song, I know you're happy, but you don't have to be so polite with me. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, and it's my duty to treat patients and save people. Besides, we're like family to each other. Aunt has cancer, and if I don't treat her after knowing it, I'm afraid my dad will break my legs if he finds out. Ha ha ha, well said. We're family, so I won't be polite with you. By the way, can I go in and see your aunt? Asked Song Guanghui. Tan Xiu said with a strange expression, of course you can. But Uncle Song, you have to be mentally prepared. Song Guanghui was stunned and asked, mentally prepared for what? Tan Xiu said with a smile, I removed the cancer cells from my aunt's body and stuck them to the surface of her body. This stench is emitted by those cancer cells. I think you're the most suitable person to clean my aunt's body, but you have to endure the stench. At the side, Song Yang exclaimed, what did you say, Tan Xiu? The black and gray substance on my mother's body isn't the ointment you concocted? It's the cancer cell impurities discharged from my mother's body. Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, that's right. I didn't use any ointment at all. I just used acupuncture to stimulate her acupoints and stimulate her body's potential. Then I controlled and found those cancer cells and forced them out of her body. Song Yang was dumbfounded, and Song Xiang also turned into a stone statue. The two brothers looked at Tan Xiu as if they were looking at a monster. Not a purebred monster on earth, but a super monster from the sky. The two brothers had heard countless magical stories and seen some bizarre things, but they had never encountered such an unimaginable situation. Half an hour later, when Song Guanghui helped Wenjing out of the massage room, he had already cleaned her up in the bathroom. The stench had completely dissipated, and the smell of shower gel wafted from Wenjing's body. Thank you, Tan Xiu. The way Wenjing looked at Tan Xiu was much gentler than before. It was as if she was looking at her own child, full of love and satisfaction. Tan Xiu stepped forward and held Wenjing's arm, saying with a smile, we're a family, auntie. This is what I should do. Wenjing heavily nodded and said, good boy. You're really a good boy. Auntie won't be polite with you. I feel a bit weak now, but the pain caused by the cancer cells is gone. I can even clearly feel that the longer I stay here, the more comfortable and warm my body feels, just like when I'm next to a heater. Your body will indeed feel weak for the time being, said Tan Xiu. That's because too many cancer cell impurities have been discharged from your body. In fact, the cancer cell impurities are also a kind of energy, which is equivalent to giving you more energy in your body. However, this energy is not good for you, and it's harmful instead. Auntie, you should rest for a while and drink some nutritious hot porridge. I'll write a prescription later, and you'll have a good sleep after taking it. You'll be full of energy tomorrow. All right. But I need to cook for you before I rest, said Wenjing with a smile. Tan Xiu quickly said, your body is too weak now, auntie. Let's forget about cooking. Song Guanghui also nodded and said, yeah. Tan Xiu will feel your kindness, but your body is more important. It won't be too late to show Tan Xiu your cooking skills after you get better tomorrow. Wenjing stubbornly shook her head and said, I like this boy, very much. That's why I must cook for him when he comes to our house for the first time. Ah, right. Don't you have 2 bottles of good wine? Hurry up and take them out. The 4 of you will have a good drink tonight. All right. Song Guanghui knew his wife's character. Even 8 bulls couldn't pull her back when she was stubborn. Upon seeing this, Tan Xiu no longer insisted and winked at Song Xiang. The two of them then helped Wenjing to the kitchen to help her. In the living room, Song Yang stared blankly at his mother and Tan Xiu who disappeared at the kitchen door. When he turned to look at his father, Song Guanghui, he lowered his voice and asked, do you really believe what Tan Xiu said, Dad? Can he really cure my mom? Song Guanghui was silent for a moment. Then, he lowered his voice and said, I'll tell you something, brat. But you must keep it to yourself. If there's anyone in this world who can cure your mom's cancer, it's probably Tan Xiu. He's a cultivator. You can check what kind of existence a cultivator is on the internet. But you must never tell anyone else about what I just told you. A cultivator? Song Yang nodded and said in a low voice, I don't need to check the information to know what kind of existence a cultivator is, Dad. But, aren't they the legendary immortals? Are there really such people in this world? Yes, I know about them, said Song Guanghui seriously. The expression in Song Yang's eyes changed in an instant. When he looked at the kitchen again, his eyes were full of passion, mixed with a faint desire hidden in the deepest part of his heart. In the legends, cultivators could summon the wind and summon the rain, move the stars, fly in the sky, and live for hundreds and thousands of years. If Tang Xiu was really a cultivator, and if he really had this kind of ability, then he would have to learn from him no matter what. After the meal. When Jing went back to her bedroom to rest, while Song Guanghui took Tan Xiu, Song Xiang, and Song Yang to the study on the second floor. Song Yang attentively brewed a pot of tea and brought it to Tan Xiu. He poured a cup and handed it to Tan Xiu and solemnly said, Big brother Tang, you're 2 years older than me according to the year of our birth, so I should address you as Big brother. I hope you don't stoop to the same level as me before. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and took the cup of tea, saying, We're brothers, so I won't take it to heart. Big brother Tang is really a prime minister with a big heart and a broad mind, said Song Yang smilingly. We're brothers, so we must get closer in the future. Definitely. Tan Xiu smiled. Song Guanghui was unaware of the small conflict between Tan Xiu and Song Yang, so he smilingly said, You brothers must get closer in the future. Big brother Tang and I are old, and the world will be yours in the future. I hope to see you support each other and make progress together in the future. Chapter 948. A faint aroma of tea permeated the study. After chatting for a while, Tang Xiu got down to business. Uncle Song, you've been targeted by the Dark Wind organization. Their informants have also appeared in Tom Reggie's place. If my guess is correct, the Darkwind's people must have found us the last time we met. Song Guanghui's expression changed and he said with a look of dread, the world's largest intelligence organization, the Darkwind? Rumor has it that they're everywhere and monitor every movement in every corner of the world. Why are they targeting us, Tan Xiu? It should be because of your and Tom Reggie's identity, said Tan Xiu. The Darkwind's people wouldn't deliberately investigate you if you're an ordinary person, but you're the number 2 person in Saipan, and Tom Reggie is a powerful and influential person. As the confidant of the number 1 person, your meeting will naturally attract the Darkwind's attention. Could it be that old Karst found some clues and asked the Darkwind's intelligence personnel to investigate us? Asked Song Guanghui worriedly. I can't rule out this possibility, but the probability is very small, said Tan Xiu. I've decided to visit the Darkwind's branch in Saipan tonight to confirm this result. As for you and Tom Reggie, don't meet for the time being. Wait until I pull out the Darkwind's mole in Saipan, then you can contact each other again. Also, draw up a plan as soon as possible to get rid of Karst as soon as possible. Only then can you become the most powerful man in Saipan. It'll be much more convenient for you to do things in the future. As a matter of fact, Tan Xiu had another idea in mind. Saipan was the closest land to Nine Dragons Island and could be regarded as the gateway to Nine Dragons Island. Only by making the ruler of this island one of his own could the secret of Nine Dragons Island be better guaranteed in the future. Therefore, he needed to push Song Guanghui to the highest position in Saipan as soon as possible. Anyone who tried to stop him would be his enemy. I'll draw up an action plan with Tom Reggie as soon as possible, said Song Guanghui. The best way to get rid of Karst is to get rid of him without arousing suspicion, said Song Guanghui. Let's make it an accident, then, said Tan Xiu. If it's inconvenient for you to do it, then I'll send my men to do it perfectly. As for the aftermath, I'll leave it to you. All right, but you must be careful. Song Guanghui reminded. In the evening. After Tan Xiu left Jinla Mansion, Jin Shi, who had been hiding in the dark, emerged from a dark corner and quickly came to Tan Xiu. It's over? Tan Xiu asked. Jin Shi nodded and said, there are 3 of them in total. I've dealt with them all. Now that it's settled, let's head straight to the Darkwind branch in Saipan, said Tan Xiu. Remember, don't let anyone from the Darkwind escape tonight. Otherwise, we'll be exposed and attract unnecessary trouble. Yes. Jin Shi respectfully said. Tan Xiu still had some concerns about the Darkwind organization. It was the largest intelligence agency in the world, with more than 1 million people in total. It was even possible to reach a terrifying number of tens of millions. With such a large number of people, who knew how many powerful characters were hidden among them? Given the everlasting feast hall's strength, they were naturally not afraid of the Darkwind organization. Even if Tan Xiu brought his men to the Darkwind's headquarters, he could still slaughter most of its top executives. However, cutting the grass was difficult to pull out the roots. If he couldn't completely destroy the Darkwind organization, he was bound to face the Darkwind's crazy retaliation in the future. He wasn't afraid of it, but his friends and family would be in danger. Furthermore, martial strength was indeed paramount in this world, but there was another kind of danger that was stronger than personal cultivation and martial strength, terrifying firearms and explosives. For example, bombs, missiles, nuclear bombs, and other weapons. With such a huge intelligence agency like the Darkwind, it was very likely that they had their own exclusive armed forces. Even he wouldn't be able to resist in case the Darkwind's top executives were to use such a terrifying weapon as a nuclear warhead. Coastal area. More than a dozen Western-style villas were located in a mountain forest in Saipan. All of them were owned by the Darkwind organization, and the armed forces stationed here numbered more than 100 people. In a villa in the middle of the area, Yao Guchuan was quietly sitting on the sofa. The room was dark, but his eyes were particularly bright, and there was even a murderous glint in them. 3 photos were placed on the coffee table in front of him. They were Tan Xiu, Song Guanghui, and Tom Reggie respectively. Next to the photos was a mobile phone. Ring, 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 the phone's ringtone sounded, and the dim light from the screen brought a bit of light to the dark room. Yao Guchuan quickly grabbed the phone and pressed the answer button. After that, he asked in a deep voice, "How is it? Have you investigated it?" "Not yet, but we have found something else." "What did you find?" "Tan Xiu went to Jinla Mansion today to visit Sunhui. Our men are still monitoring the vicinity of Jinla Mansion, but they haven't received any news of Tan Xiu's departure." "Got it." Yao Guchuan hung up the phone with a glint in his eyes. He hated Tan Xiu to the core, and he couldn't wait to hack Tan Xiu into 1,000 pieces. Therefore, he accidentally discovered Tan Xiu's figure after the Darkwind's intel operatives noticed that Song Guanghui and Tom Reggie were in contact. Therefore, he deduced that there was an unspeakable secret between Song Guanghui and Tom Reggie. And Tan Xiu's role in it was very likely to be very important. Therefore, he had sent all the Darkwind operatives in Saipan to investigate the relationship between Tan Xiu, Song Guanghui, and Tom Reggie. If I didn't know about it, I would have thought that there's an assassin hiding here. As the lights in the room suddenly lit up, Tan Xiu and Tang Guang appeared in front of Yao Guchuan. Tan Xiu was sitting opposite Yao Guchuan with his legs crossed and a smile on his handsome face. "You," Yao Guchuan abruptly jumped up from the sofa. Others might not know how terrifying Tan Xiu was, but he was perfectly aware of it. Someone who could kill that Amur tiger by himself was absolutely ridiculously powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, how could he appear here without a trace? How could he appear in front of him? "You seem to be shocked," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Yao Guchuan stared at Tan Xiu with vigilance and asked in a deep voice, "How did you get in here?" "There are many guards here, and all kinds of surveillance cameras are installed without leaving any blind spots. It's impossible for you to come in without being discovered by my men." "You think too highly of your men, don't you?" Tan Xiu chuckled. "They're just a bunch of trash in my opinion. It's ridiculous to use them to find my whereabouts. Anyways, let's cut the crap. I seem to be one of the photos on the coffee table in front of you, no?" Yao Guchuan's expression changed. He squinted and said, "You can come here, Tan Xiu, so I'm afraid you've guessed my identity." That's right, I'm the chief supervisor of the Darkwind Saipan branch. Tell me your purpose in coming here. Purpose? Tan Xiu chuckled. It's very simple. I need information from you. Yao Guchuan secretly felt relieved inwardly and said in a deep voice, what information do you want to buy? Our Darkwind organization's purpose is very clear. As long as the price is high enough, we can even find out the sleeping posture of the M country's president. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette and waved. I'm not interested in the sleeping posture of the M country's president, but I'm quite interested in you. To be exact, I'm quite interested in your Darkwind organization. I don't get what you mean, said Yao Guchuan with a frown. You're just pretending to be confused, aren't you? Tan Xiu sneered. You don't get what I mean. Why did your Darkwind organization specifically investigate me, Song Guanghui, and Tom Reggie? You even sent people to spy on Tom and Song Guanghui in secret. What's your purpose? Yao Guchuan was silent for a moment and then said, it's my duty. Song Guanghui and Tom Reggie have unusual identities, so there's a good chance that someone wants to buy information about them. Since it's information that can make me rich, I naturally won't let it go. Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, you have a good eye and a good business mind. If I hadn't come here tonight, I'm afraid your position in the Darkwind organization would have been higher in the future. Thanks for the praise, said Yao Guchuan. Just tell me what kind of information you need if you're here to buy information. But if you're here to make trouble, even if you're very strong and even the Amur tiger is no match for you, I'm afraid you won't get much of an advantage from us since we have a lot of manpower here. Tan Xiu clapped his hands and said with satisfaction, I like it when you say such words. In order to prove you wrong, I have to do something. What do you want to do? Asked Yao Guchuan hurriedly. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and shouted, Jin sure, do it. Yao Guchuan's expression drastically changed and he shouted, Tan Xiu, our Darkwind organization has no enmity with you. We just investigated some information about you. Why do you want to kill us? Aren't you afraid of becoming mortal enemies with our organization? Whoosh! Tang Guang instantly appeared in front of Yao Guchuan and grabbed his neck, lifting him up from the ground and sneered, does my boss care about becoming a mortal enemy of your Darkwind organization? What the hell is your Darkwind organization? My boss has the ability to completely destroy your organization if he wants to. Don't scare this guy, Guang, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I won't be able to get any valuable information from him if you scare him to death. Tang Guang slightly bowed and casually threw Yao Guchuan to the ground and returned to stand behind Tan Xiu. What's your name? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Yao Guchuan was silent for a moment and answered, Guchuan. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and mocked, Guchuan is just your name. What I want to know is your surname. Don't try to play tricks. We can find your Darkwind branch, so we naturally know the name of the person in charge of your organization. Now, I suspect that my inference is correct, Mr. Yao. Chapter 949. Mr. Yao. It was just 3 words, but it made Yao Guchuan shudder all over and fear filled his eyes, as though he was shrouded by the shadow of death. He hated Tang Xiu and wished that he could hack him to pieces, pull out his tendons, and peel off his skin. But he didn't want to die because he wanted to live and accumulate his strength to avenge his kin. That's right. His surname was Yao, and he was a member of the Yao family in the imperial capital of Huaxia. The Yao family used to be powerful and glorious in Huaxia. He was secretly sent abroad by his family and successfully became an intelligence officer of the Darkwind organization after many years of operation. Coupled with his efforts, he was now appointed as the chief supervisor of the Saipan branch. His real identity was known only to the Yao family's patriarch and several core members of the family. But how did Tan Xiu know about it? Wanna know how I found out about it? Asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Yao Guchuan got up from the ground and took 2 steps back vigilantly. As he put his hands in his trouser pockets, he bitterly asked, yeah, I really want to know how you know my surname is Yao. Even the Dark Wind Organization's all-pervasive organization has yet to find out my true identity. I guessed it, said Tan Xiao with a strange expression. What? Yao Guchuan was stunned for a moment before he suddenly looked angry and shouted, "Are you trying to pry information out of me? Damn it, you damned bastard, do you really want to kill us all? I did send my men to kill the core members of the Yao family, as well as those powerful ones." Tan Xiao burst into laughter. "But I have nothing to do with your Yao family's ordinary martial artists and clansmen who ended up in such a miserable state. Who told your Yao family to offend too many people by relying on its tyrannical strength all these years? So many families, forces, and people jumped out to beat you when you're down. If you want to resent someone, then resent what your Yao family has done for so many years. If it wasn't for you and your Tang family, would my Yao family have fallen to such a miserable state?" Yao Guchuan angrily shouted. "Yes, I hate you. I want nothing more than to pull out your tendons, peel off your skin, drink your blood, and eat your flesh. So what? I'm the person in charge of the Saipan branch of the Dark Wind Organization. I'm also a senior member of the organization. Do you dare to kill me?" Saying, he pulled his hand out of his trouser pocket and pulled out a small black remote control. His finger pressed a red button on it. Tan Xiao narrowed his eyes as a bad feeling arose in his heart. Danger. The moment Yao Guchuan took out the remote control, he had a strong sense of crisis. He suddenly regretted not killing Yao Guchuan directly just now, or directly restraining Yao Guchuan so that he would lose any ability to fight. "You seem to have a trump card," Tan Xiao said slowly after a few seconds of silence. A ferocious look appeared on Yao Guchuan's face as he replied, "That's right. I have a trump card that can save my life, so you don't dare to act rashly. This is the Saipan branch of our Dark Wind Organization, a place where we can perish together with anyone. You didn't expect it, did you? There are explosives everywhere in this branch, and all of them are very powerful TNT. Once I press this button, this place will be blown to the sky and everyone here will be blown to pieces." In a flash, Tan Xiao released his spiritual sense and quickly covered the range of hundreds of meters. What made him dread was that there were bomb-like things in several extremely hidden places in the surroundings. What made him dread was not the bombs in these places, but the ones coming from below. It was as though there were great floods and fierce beasts underground that could give him a fatal sense of danger. "I've cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, so I may be able to withstand it if I have to face it head-on. But Imo Al, Jin Shi, and the others are still hiding in the dark. I'm afraid they won't be able to escape death once the explosives here are detonated. Do I really have to give up the chance to kill Yao Guchuan? If I let him go now, I'm afraid he'll report this matter to the Dark Wind Organization's HQ. When that happens, the Dark Wind Organization will most likely target me and conduct a thorough investigation on me. Once that happens, even if I hide well and the everlasting feast hall's existence is better, I'm afraid there will be some clues that will eventually expose me. But is there any way to kill Yao Guchuan without letting him detonate the explosives here? Let Dark assassinate him in the dark. That's not realistic. No matter how fast Dark is, she won't be able to stop Yao Guchuan from moving a finger the moment she kills him. Immobilization art? I'm afraid it won't work either. I don't have enough time." Countless thoughts churned inside Tan Xiao's mind, but the final result left him at a loss. Looking at Yao Guchuan's ferocious expression, Tan Xiao finally shook his head slowly. "You win." Tan Xiao looked at Yao Guchuan and said, "I won't kill you, but you must promise me not to spread any information about me to the Dark Wind Organization's HQ. I'm sure you're well aware of what I'm capable of. Even if you flee to the ends of the earth or any corner of the world, you'll still die if I want to kill you." Yao Guchuan felt relieved inwardly. He looked at Tan Xiao with a complicated expression and nodded. He didn't want to die because he knew that living a bad life was better than dying a good death. Everything was still possible as long as he was alive, but there would be nothing left if he died. Additionally, Tan Xiao was right. He knew that he wouldn't be able to escape alive no matter where he fled if he really wanted to kill him. As a member of the Dark Wind Organization's management, Yao Guchuan was well aware that it was an organization that prioritized benefits above all else. As long as the benefits were enough, even if Tan Xiu wanted to buy his escape route from the organization's top brass, the organization would sell it to him without any hesitation. If Tan Xiu paid a higher price, the organization would even send a lot of assassins to hunt him down. I give you my word. Tan Xiu nodded and said, remember, the winner takes all. The Yao family only has themselves to blame for falling into such a state. My family didn't take the initiative to be enemies with the Yao family. It was the Yao family who wanted to take advantage of my family's weakness to covet my family and constantly provoke and attack us. You, on the other hand, are doomed to never be able to avenge your family in this life, so throw away the hatred in your heart. Yao Guchuan was silent for more than 10 seconds before he replied with a gloomy expression, I understand. I'll never take the initiative to report your matter to the organization's HQ unless I'm tired of living. But I'll leave a backup plan. If you dare to kill me, the information about you will definitely appear on the desk of the big boss of the Dark Wind Organization's HQ, understood? Tan Xiu replied and turned to walk toward the door. But just as he stepped out of the door, he suddenly stopped and looked at Yao Guchuan, saying, consider this a deal between the two of us. I'll give myself some more chips. Once you violate your promise today, all the members of your Yao family will die. Don't worry. I'll investigate every member of your family's bloodline even if I have to pay a great price. Live your life honestly if you don't want your family to be exterminated. Having said that, Tan Xiu then strode away. Yao Guchuan grabbed the remote control and gently placed his finger on the remote control's button. With intense killing intent in his heart, he followed Tan Xiu out of the room. Along the way, he stopped a large number of Darkwind members who saw Tan Xiu and Mo and quickly rushed over. Only after Tan Xiu and Mo left the branch area did he secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Tan Xiu and his men sneaked in today. This matter can't be concealed from the organization's top brass. I must come up with a foolproof plan to suppress this matter. That damn Tan Xiu is too weird. I'm afraid I won't be able to avenge my clansmen for the rest of my life. However, I must sort out the information about him and hand it over to someone I can trust. It'll bring him endless troubles if he dares to kill me. Yao Guchuan turned around and went back to his room. He didn't put away the remote control in his hand, nor did he remove his finger from the button. Time fleeted by. A few hours later, it was already late at night. He carefully observed the surroundings and found that there were no signs of movement around. Only then did he remove his finger from the remote control's button. Puff! Half a meter away, a sword light suddenly flashed and directly chopped off Yao Guchuan's arm and beheaded him. In the blink of an eye, the black-clad Tangan had snatched the remote control from the severed arm's hand. With his head chopped off, Yao Guchuan's vision kept spinning. He saw the flashing scenes around him, as well as his headless body. He also saw a woman wearing a bronze mask snatching the remote control from his severed arm. Damn bastard! He doesn't keep his word, only a dead man can absolutely keep a secret. As the last two thoughts flashed through his mind, Yao Guchuan's consciousness turned into nothingness. Tangan indifferently glanced at Yao Guchuan's corpse. Her figure then flashed and instantly disappeared. In just 10 seconds, she appeared a few kilometers away. Boss! Tangan appeared in front of Tan Xiu out of thin air and handed the remote control to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, you did a good job. Now, I'll give you a mission. You must get all the information here tonight, especially the list of the Darkwind members in Saipan. After that, start killing them. No matter how many there are, get rid of them. Understood. Tangan complied and disappeared again. Jin Shi and the others also responded and lurked toward the Darkwind Organization's branch. Do you want me to stay here, boss? Asked Mo with an indifferent expression. Tan Xiu handed the remote control to Mo and nodded. There's no need for this place to exist anymore after the mission is completed. Understood. Mo all replied and quickly followed Jin Shi and the rest. I'll send you 2 chapters first. How many chapters we can get today will depend on the strength of our brothers and sisters. Begging for monthly votes and attention. Chapter 950. At the Lao Bay Resort. After returning to the villa arranged by Tom Reggie, Tan Xiu immediately began to cultivate. Although he hadn't stopped cultivating recently, he didn't make much progress apart from the battle on the deserted island at sea. Tonight, he once again realized that his strength was still too weak. If his strength was twice as strong as it was now, he wouldn't have been so helpless when Yao Guchuan took the remote control to detonate the explosives. Demon stones. He didn't have many of them, and he had yet to fulfill the deal Xingluan had promised him. However, even if he had a steady supply of demon stones, Tan Xiu still took out 2 of them and began to absorb and refine them to quickly enhance his strength. Early morning. Just as Tan Xiu was immersed in his cultivation, he suddenly felt the earth tremble as though an earthquake had occurred. At this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes. Ring, 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 his cell phone rang. Tan Xiu quickly grabbed the phone and saw the caller ID. A smile immediately appeared on the corner of his mouth as he picked up the call and asked, "Are you done?" "I'm done," Mo O's voice came out of the phone. "Good. I'll be waiting for you to come back," said Tan Xiu. Having said that, he directly hung up the phone. 10 minutes later. Tom Reggie hurried over and saw Tan Xiu standing on the open balcony on the 2nd floor of the villa overlooking the sea. He immediately shouted, "Something happened, boss." Tan Xiu's brows furrowed. His figure floated down and stood in front of Tom Reggie, asking, "What happened?" "I just received the news that a big explosion occurred in a forested mountain in the coastal area of Saipan. The explosion was so powerful that it nearly blew up the entire forested mountain," said Tom Reggie. "Also, he sent some people to inquire about it. I heard that the forested mountain turned out to be a branch of the Dark Wind organization in Saipan." "Is that all?" asked Tan Xiu. "That's all," Tom Reggie hurriedly replied. "How is that a trivial matter? The Dark Wind organization is the world's largest intelligence organization. Their branch in Saipan was blown up, and I'm afraid their members must have suffered heavy casualties. Such a big thing will definitely shock the whole world. Calm down. Isn't it just a small branch of the Dark Wind organization in Saipan?" said Tan Xiu. "Was there a need to make such a fuss? Actually, it was Ah Wu and the others who blew it up." "What?" Tom Reggie was dumbfounded. His mouth was agape and his face was filled with disbelief. "The Dark Wind has been eyeing you and Song Guanghui, but you two haven't noticed it yet," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Yesterday, I ordered Jin Shi and the others to get rid of all the Dark Wind intel operatives around you. Then, I took them to the Dark Wind branch at night. I didn't expect that the person in charge of intel in Saipan turned out to be my former enemy. So, just kill them and be done with it." Tom Reggie swallowed his saliva. He didn't know what words to use to express his feelings. According to the information he had received, at least 100 people had died in that big explosion, and it turned out that Tan Xiu had sent people to do this. Killing God. Looking at Tan Xiu, Tom Reggie's eyes were full of awe. "Don't look at me with that kind of eyes." Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "All my enemies should die, and all my friends should be safe and sound. The Dark Wind organization is indeed the world's largest intel agency now, but my intel organization will definitely be able to replace it one day in the future." Tom Reggie was shaken inwardly and hurriedly asked, "You've established an intel organization, boss?" "Of course," Tan Xiu lightly said. "If you want your secrets to not be clearly investigated by others, then you must become the boss of the intel network. You chose to follow me, and it's actually a blessing in disguise. The same goes for Ah Wu and the others. I'll give you opportunities and power, but the enemies you'll face with me will also be very powerful. You'll become the most powerful people in the world if you can live to the end. But if you die early, then you'll only be recorded on the monument of our organization. Opportunities and challenges coexisted. Tom Reggie was well aware of this truth. He had encountered both opportunities and challenges all these years. He had heard a lot of terrifying people, but none of them could be compared to Tan Xiu. A man should be self-reliant. Following a hero was bound to be able to show disdain for the world in the future, but the road ahead must be paved with blood and corpses. A strong desire to fight emerged inside Tom Reggie's heart. He was willing to pledge allegiance to a fierce man like Tan Xiu. The ambition in his heart made him realize that he must follow Tan Xiu if he wanted to become stronger and have unlimited achievements. Boss, I, Tom Reggie, will entrust my life to you. Those who are willing to entrust their lives to me are my brothers, Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Although there will be countless crises on the road ahead, I'll do my best to ensure my brothers' lives. Work hard. I'm actually very optimistic about you. Understood. Tom Reggie solemnly nodded. Tan Xiu took out a cigarette. But before he could take out a lighter, Tom Reggie quickly handed it over and lit the cigarette for Tan Xiu. Contact Song Guanghui immediately, Tom Reggie. The big explosion in Saipan is definitely a good opportunity for us. Karst won't live until tonight, but it's up to your ability to lead him to the explosion and slander him, ordered Tan Xiu. Tom Reggie's expression was a bit complicated as he nodded and said, I'll contact him right away. He was afraid. Aside from admiration for Tan Xiu, the fear he had toward him had also grown to the limit. It was because he found that Tan Xiu's way of doing things was always interlinked with each other. Everything he did had other purposes. Some people would get rich benefits when they successfully schemed against others. But Tan Xiu would pull out the radish and bring out the mud after he successfully schemed against others to achieve other purposes and obtain more benefits. Standing in the villa's courtyard, Tan Xiu watched Tom Reggie leave with a bit of satisfaction in his heart. He found that Tom Reggie was truly loyal to him this time. As a matter of fact, he valued Tom Reggie very much because he found that Tom Reggie was actually more powerful than Moo. It was not in terms of martial arts, but in terms of his ability to handle matters. Moo was very strong and had a very good killing ability. But if he were to become someone like Tom Reggie, it would be very difficult for him to build his own force in a certain place by relying on his own ability. It could be said that, Moo was a general, but he couldn't become a commander-in-chief. Tom Reggie, on the other hand, could not only charge and break through the enemy lines as a general, but he could also lead troops on expeditions and become a capable commander. Blue sea and blue sky. A large luxury yacht was quietly anchored on the rippling blue sea, and a silvery bell-like laughter was constantly coming out from the yacht. Champagne, wine, gourmet food, and beautiful women. Karst, who was bare-chested, had a look of enjoyment on his face. He could be said to be a master of flirting. More than a dozen beautiful women in bikinis around him were amused by him and laughed again and again. Two stalwart men with grim expressions quietly stayed outside the yacht's cabin. Even though there were several beautiful women in revealing clothes around them, they remained unmoved and turned a blind eye to them. Ring, ring, ring. As his cell phone rang, one of the stalwart men took it out and looked at the caller ID. After picking it up, he asked in a deep voice, "What's up?" Half a minute later, the stalwart man rushed into the yacht's cabin and quickly said, "There's an important matter, sir." The smile on Karst's face froze. He was silent for a few seconds and then waved to the bikini girls to go out. After a while, only he and the stalwart man were left in the yacht's cabin. As the cabin door was closed, he said with a gloomy face, "I've been out for a vacation for 2 days in the last 6 months, but my good mood has been disturbed. You know what will happen if the content of your report doesn't make me pay attention to it. According to the news we got, there was a big explosion in the coastal forest in the Mawson area and the death toll has exceeded 100 people so far," said the stalwart man. The more accurate news is that the site of the explosion was the Darkwind Organization's branch in Saipan. What? Karst suddenly jumped up from the sofa with a horrified look on his face. The news should be correct. The reason for the explosion is that there were a lot of explosives stored at the site, said the stalwart man. If those explosives were placed in the city, I'm afraid the number of casualties will reach tens of thousands. Ring, 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 as his voice faded away, his cell phone rang again. The stalwart man picked up the phone again and listened for a while. Then, he hung up and said, I'm afraid you're in trouble. What kind of trouble? Asked Karst hurriedly. There's news that you couldn't tolerate the Darkwind organization setting up a branch in Saipan, so you sent people to blow it up, said the stalwart man. Also, someone used your vacation to avoid suspicion and made a fuss about it. In other words, the news of your vacation has been spread out. Framing and framing. This is framing and creating something out of nothing. Karst angrily shouted. It's indeed a framing, but the trouble is that the bodies of your other bodyguards were found at the site of the explosion, said the stalwart man. Also, someone forged the traces of a battle there, so, Karst instantly realized the seriousness of the matter. The first thing he thought of was that the person who framed him was his political enemy, Song Guanghui. Contact Balin and Tom Reggie and tell them to wait for me at the Lao Bay Resort. I won't sit still and wait for death since someone has plotted against me. If you want to fight, then let's tear off all pretense of cordiality. Shouted Karst with a murderous aura. Aya, heavens! Is that a human? Am I dreaming? How is this possible? Exclamations of the bikini-clad girls came from outside the cabin. Karst and the stalwart man exchanged glances. Then, they seemed to realize something and immediately rushed out of the cabin. When they came to the deck, the first thing they saw was a handsome white-clothed youth stepping on the surface of the sea tens of meters away, walking toward them step by step. Chapter 951. Karst couldn't believe his eyes. He was an atheist who didn't believe in the existence of gods in this world. But at this moment, those scenes that could only appear in TV dramas and movies, which were like godlike existences, actually appeared in front of his eyes. Was he dreaming? Or was he hallucinating? Karst turned his head with difficulty. When he saw his men around him, as well as the bikini-clad girls, all staring dumbfoundedly at the handsome young man treading on the water, he finally realized that he wasn't dreaming. You're Karst? The Supreme Officer of Saipan? A smile hung on Tang Guang's face, but a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. Although he got the information that Karst took several of his men and a group of socialites to the sea for vacation, it still took him a lot of effort to find Karst. Who are you? Karst vigilantly looked at Tang Guang and asked. You don't need to know who I am. Tang Guang shook his head and smilingly said, just answer my question. Are you Karst or not? The Supreme Officer of Saipan? Of course, you also have the right to refuse, but the price of refusing is that your corpse will be fed to the fishes in the sea. Karst reached for his waist, only to find that he had forgotten the pistol he usually kept on his waist in the yacht's cabin. However, the corner of his eyes glanced at the waists of his two men on his left and right. His expression immediately shifted and he quickly pulled out the pistol from the left man's waist and quickly unlocked the safety. Then, he revealed a cold expression and said in a deep voice, That's right. I'm Karst. You have a special origin and I thought that only a god could do it. But after thinking about it, I suddenly recalled something. That's why I said you're not a so-called god, and there are no gods in this world. Who said I'm not a god? Tang Guang chuckled. I'm a god in the eyes of countless people. Wrong. You're just a powerful elementalist. Karst sneered. Your innate ability should be water manipulation, right? An elementalist? Tang Guang disdainfully said. How dare you compare me with those elementalists? Now, take a good look at what I'm using. Having said that, Tang Guang slowly raised his arms and two flames floated out of his palms, causing the bikini-clad girls on the yacht to exclaim. Karst's pupils shrunk and he exclaimed in shock, You have both water and fire abilities? You, who exactly are you? Tang Guang rolled his eyes and coldly snorted. Stubborn and brainless. In an instant, the two balls of flame floating in his hands shot toward the yacht. As the two balls of flame hit the yacht, a violent explosion occurred. Whether it was Karst, his two subordinates, or the bikini-clad girls, they were all killed in an instant. Humph, a cold voice spread in the air. Tangen, who was still wearing the same black robe and bronze mask, coldly glanced at the exploding yacht and the corpses floating on the sea. Then, she indifferently said, "You've made a mistake by talking to your target. You're not a qualified assassin." Tang Guang turned his head and grinned. "Who said I'm an assassin? When I fight with the enemy, I always attack them in an open and above-board manner. You, on the other hand, are the assassins hiding in the dark. Sneak attacks are always better than frontal combat." Tangen sneered. "I advise you to learn time and space spells too." Tang Guang waved his hand and said, "What I need is my cultivation level and my own combat power. You, on the other hand, need to study time and space spells. Anyways, you've said it countless times. I'll be annoyed even if you don't bother me. It seems I'll have to talk to boss when I get back. I'll see if he can keep you around so that you don't bother me every day." Tangen angrily glared at Tang Guang. Sword energy suddenly appeared out of thin air and accurately pierced all the corpses. Then, she twisted her body and disappeared into thin air. Bah! Tang Guang rolled his eyes again and then turned around and dashed toward Saipan. Saipan. In the villa of Lao Bei Resort, Tan Xiu was enjoying a sunbath while the sea breeze brushed his skin. Suddenly, he thought of Zhang Xinya. He felt that if Zhang Xinya came back with him at this moment, she would definitely be by his side, massaging his arms and legs and serving him obediently. These days, Zhang Xinya had always been obedient to him. Zhang Xinya was simply obedient to him. Even when he was in Saipan and often had things to do, as long as the two of them were together, Zhang Xinya would accompany him. But this time, Zhang Xinya didn't come with him. She said that she liked Nine Dragons Island and was going to stay there for a while to relax and treat it as a holiday for herself. Whoosh! A hazy figure flashed from a distance and appeared in front of Tan Xiu in the blink of an eye. Donned in a black robe and a bronze mask, Tangen respectfully reported, "Karst is dead, Grand Master. I'm relieved that you're handling this matter." Tan Xiu smiled. "What about Tang Guang? Why did you come out to report?" "My brother, he went to look for a woman," said Tangen helplessly. Tan Xiu stared blankly and was surprised. Tang Guang went to look for a woman? Could it be that he's in love? "He's not looking for a decent woman," said Tangen with a disgruntled expression. "He went to the resort village to look for women. According to him, it's to vent his killing intent." Pfft! Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Shaking his head, he said, "I thought Tang Guang didn't like women, but I didn't expect him to. Anyways, forget it. Let him be since he wants to look for women. It's normal for men to have some physiological needs." Tangen stared blankly and helplessly said, "You're not the kind of person who acts recklessly, boss. How can you condone your subordinate's behavior? If it were up to me, you should have arrested my brother and taught him a lesson. Then, you should have given him a death order that he's not allowed to fool around with those shady women in the future. It's not my place to meddle in this matter, no?" Tan Xiu forced a wry smile. "Tang Guang is an adult and has his own preferences. I may be his Grand Master, but it's not my place to meddle in this matter. Tangen, he may be your brother, but I advise you not to meddle in this matter. He won't mess around like this again after he's had enough fun or he meets a woman he likes in the future. But you're not young anymore. You should find yourself a good boyfriend if you have the time. Anyways, we have a lot of men in the everlasting feast hall. Do you have any you like?" Tangen didn't expect that her Grand Master would bring the topic to her. It must be noted that ever since she met Tan Xiu, she found that no other man could compare with her Grand Master. Although he was a bit fickle and had a lot of women, at least he was outstanding and not the kind of man who would fool around with men and women without any feelings. Just this sense of responsibility alone was countless times stronger than her fickle older brother. I'll talk to you later, Grand Master. Tangan stamped her feet and looked a bit bashful like a young woman. Then, she disappeared into thin air in front of him. Ha ha ha, Tan Xiu burst into laughter. When his laughter stopped, he took out his cell phone and dialed a number. After his call was picked up, he said, Karst is dead, so I'll leave the rest to you. I'll leave Saipan with my men tomorrow and head to Bangkok in Tea Country to deal with something. That's great. Don't worry. Tom, Reggie and I will be there, so there won't be any problems. Song Guanghui's pleasantly surprised voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu replied and directly hung up. Early in the morning. As the first ray of sunlight sprinkled down, Tan Xiu, who was sitting cross-legged on a reef by the sea, opened his eyes. After absorbing the magic power from the demon's stone all night, the planet inside his body had faintly grown a lot. As for the granular planet, it was still lifeless and didn't have the slightest change. Grand Master Tang Guang, who was standing a dozen meters away from Tan Xiu, was in high spirits. Upon seeing Tan Xiu wake up from his cultivation, he immediately floated over and respectfully greeted him. Did you relax well yesterday? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Your younger sister came to me to complain about you, though. Tang Guang stared blankly for a moment before he let out a dry smile and said, I'll pay attention to it later, Grand Master. I don't care if you pay attention to it or not, but women are not to be underestimated. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Pay attention to your own safety if you don't know anything about them. All right, I don't want to lecture you about this. Just inform Ao and the others to pack up and we'll leave. Singluan wants to see you, Grand Master, said Tang Guang. He has been waiting for you for several hours. I was going to wake you up, but he didn't let me. Is it urgent? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. I don't know the specifics, but he seems to be in a hurry, answered Tang Guang. Tan Xiu nodded and turned to look at Singluan, who was pacing tens of meters away. His eyes were constantly looking at him. His figure flashed and appeared in front of him, asking, What is it? I received an order from my father to return to the clan last night, Mr. Tang, said Singluan hurriedly. He ordered me to return to the clan no matter where I am. I'm afraid something has happened. An order to return to the clan? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. That's right, explained Singluan. It's a death order that only the Patriarch can issue. Any member of the Dark Shaman clan must return to the clan as soon as they receive the order, no matter where they are. In the past, the Patriarch would only issue such an order when our clan is in a life and death crisis. I didn't expect that he would issue it now. Is your Dark Shaman clan in trouble? Asked Tan Xiu. I contacted my subordinates in Bangkok a few hours ago, said Singluan with a shake of his head. I didn't hear anything about any crisis in the clan. A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes and he said in a deep voice, I need you to answer a question for me. If your father were to choose an heir, do you think he would choose you or your big brother? Actually, I've been thinking about it for a long time and I already have a conclusion, said Singluan bitterly. I don't want to admit it, but the fact is that my father will definitely choose my big brother. Chapter 952. Looking at the bitter expression on Singluan's face, Tan Xiu sighed, It seems your father has really chosen your big brother. I'm afraid he's setting up a hangmen banquet for you to go back this time. You have to think about it clearly. We'll have to face the entire Dark Shaman clan once your father moves against you. I don't believe my father will deal with me personally. Singluan shook his head. My position in his heart may not be as high as my big brother, but he still has a deep affection for me. I hope so, replied Tan Xiu in a non-committal manner. But we still have to be prepared to face the full force of your Dark Shaman clan when we return to Tea Country. According to the original plan, we're going to Tea Country above board, but it seems we'll have to change the plan now. What plan? Asked Singluan with a slightly moved expression. Tan Xiu didn't answer him but looked at Tang Guang and said, "Find a way to contact the smugglers from Saipan to Tea Country's Bangkok. We need to sneak into Bangkok. Also, Yuanan will come with me. As for Ao and the others, let them figure out a way by themselves. I'll arrange it right away." Tang Guang nodded. At noon, two SUVs quickly headed toward the port. The port was located in a remote location and was said to be a four-man port owned by a powerful figure in Saipan. Although it was very small, there were still several cargo ships anchored at the shore. In the surroundings, more than a dozen middle-aged men in black uniforms and sunglasses surrounded a black youth as they stood quietly next to the SUVs. A lean middle-aged man in a flowery coat and a cap was talking to him coldly. "There are 15 minutes left before the ship departs. No matter what your identity is, you can't change it until the time is up. If you're not satisfied, you can leave this place and leave through other means. $1 million. I'll transfer it to your account immediately if you're willing to set sail," said the black youth in fluent English. A greedy look flashed in the lean middle-aged man's eyes, but he hesitated for a moment before he stubbornly shook his head and said, "This is our rule. I can't break it. Besides, you're not the only guest this time. We must wait until the time is up before we can set sail." The black youth cursed. More than a dozen strong men around him immediately pulled out their pistols and aimed at the lean middle-aged man. However, at the moment when the gun was aimed at the lean middle-aged man, a group of seemingly honest fishermen and women suddenly appeared around him. They were all armed with guns. In addition to pistols, there were also many submachine guns. Noticing this, the black youth immediately raised his hand and said, "All right. You've won, bro. I hope we don't meet again in the future." Finished. He led more than a dozen strong men and quickly boarded a nearby cargo ship. Tang Guang, who had been following beside Tan Xiu, looked disdainful upon seeing the scene ahead and whispered, "This is a common situation for illegal immigrants, boss. Some lucky ones would be able to reach their destination alive, while some unlucky ones would be robbed and killed halfway, their corpses sinking into the sea. I'm afraid we've run into a tough one this time." Tan Xiu asked, "Do you think they're tough?" "I don't think so." Tang Guang shook his head and said, "But for ordinary people, those people who just boarded the ship are indeed tough. Besides, those guys should have killed a lot of people. Don't complicate things." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "We need to arrive in Bangkok secretly. We'll ignore them if they don't provoke us. Unless they don't want to live." "I understand." Tang Guang nodded. Shortly after, Tan Xiu's group of 9 saw the lean middle-aged man. Tang Guang quickly gestured to him and then paced a few steps forward and said, "I've transferred the money to your account this morning. Our group's code name is Ghost Shadow." The lean middle-aged man sized them up and waved his hand. "I won't say anything since you know the rules. Remember, you must obey our arrangement on the way, or you'll be making things difficult for us. Let's board the ship. We'll set sail in 10 minutes. I want to know how many people are sneaking in at the same time," asked Tang Guang. The lean young man looked at Tang Guang in surprise and grinned. "It seems you've dealt with a lot of people in our line of work, haven't you? Anyways, there's no harm in telling you. There are more than 40 people going to Bangkok with you this time, about 50 people including you. Be careful on the way, buddy. Those people who just boarded the ship are not easy to deal with. We won't intervene if you have any conflict on the way." "I understand." Tang Guang nodded. Shortly after, everyone boarded the cargo ship. The cargo ship was very dirty, with garbage and dirt everywhere, and a large number of goods scattered everywhere. This cargo ship was very dirty. Trash and filth could be seen everywhere, and a large number of items were thrown everywhere. As soon as they entered the cabin, a faint stench wafted over. The environment inside was very bad. Many people were scattered among the goods. They were in groups of 3 or 5, and there were only 7 or 8 people alone. Moreover, there were men and women, old and young, and the most eye-catching one was a woman with braided hair dressed in ordinary clothes. She had 2 children around 7 or 8 years old with her. They should be mixed-race children. Tang Guang flipped his hand and pulled out a dagger. Then, he strode to the inner corner and looked at the 3 men sitting inside. He then coldly snorted and said, "Scram. This place is ours." The 3 men glanced at Tan Xiu, Xingluan, and the others. They quickly exchanged glances and then got up to hide in other places. Tan Xiu smiled. When he passed by the woman, he threw a few candies to the 2 children and then went to the inner corner to sit down. Shortly after, several more groups of stowaways arrived, but their numbers were small. The largest group was 4 people, while the rest came in pairs or alone. 10 minutes later, the lean middle-aged man came in from the outside with 2 young men carrying submachine guns. He coldly glanced at the cabin and said aloud, "Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to go out to sea with you. I'm Mark, and you can call me Boss Snakehead. I'll tell you in advance that we'll stop at an island midway, and another ship will pick you up there. But you must abide by my rules since you're on my ship. If anyone dares to make trouble, don't blame the gun in my hand for not recognizing you." The ship then set sail. After several hours of sailing, the cargo ship was getting farther and farther away from Saipan. Apart from the boundless sea, there was nothing else around. The sun was very bright since it was afternoon and shone through the window into the cabin, making people feel very comfortable. "I'm hungry, Mom." A faint voice came from nearby. Tan Xiu looked toward the source of the voice and immediately saw the little boy on the woman's left clutching his belly. The woman gritted her teeth and tears welled up in her eyes. She reached out to hug the little boy and whispered, "Little Boo, we came out in a hurry this time, so Mom didn't bring any food. Just bear with it. Mom will immediately take you to buy something to eat when we arrive in Bangkok." Although the little boy was disappointed, he still nodded silently. Tang Xiu sighed inwardly. After stuffing his hands into his pockets, he quietly took out 3 pieces of chocolate from his interspatial ring and threw them to the mother and children. Then, he lightly said, "Adults can bear it if they're hungry, but children are still growing. Don't treat them badly. From your words, you should be Chinese, right?" Sua Qing's expression slightly changed and a vigilant look instantly appeared in her eyes. She shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and silently picked up the chocolates around her. She then handed them to the 2 children and said, "Thank you. We're indeed Chinese." Tan Xiu nodded and didn't speak again. At this time, the black youth nearby looked at Tan Xiu and then at the mother and children. He suddenly whispered a few words to his men around him. Then, 2 blonde, blue-eyed, fierce-looking men strode to the front of the mother and children and quickly snatched the chocolates from the 2 children's hands. Then, they took them back and gave them to the black youth. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and looked at the 2 angry children who didn't dare to speak. His eyes then shifted to the black youth and lightly said, "Give the food back to the 2 children and I'll let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, you'll end up miserable." The black youth looked at Tan Xiu and then at the people around Tan Xiu, especially at Xingluan's 5 white-haired old men and the delicate woman. He immediately said to his men, "I hate it when people threaten me. Go and grab all the food from them. If they dare to refuse, give them a bullet and throw them into the sea to feed the fishes." Understood. 4 big men pulled out their pistols and walked toward Tan Xiu and the others with hideous grins. Sua Qing's pupils shrunk upon seeing the pistols in the 4 big men's hands and a look of fear appeared on her face. However, when the 4 big men were about to come in front of Tan Xiu and the others, she immediately shouted, "Don't make things difficult for them. We don't want the chocolates. Shut the fuck up, bitch." One of the big men turned around and fiercely cursed at Sua Qing. Slap, a loud slap reverberated in the cabin. Tang Guang slapped the big man and kicked his chest lightning fast, sending him flying backwards 7 or 8 meters away and heavily crashing into the pile of cargo. Then, he coldly snorted and said, "Guns are useless in front of powerful people. You're asking for a beating for disobeying my Grand Master's order. Bastard! The other three big men's faces changed and they angrily pointed their guns at Tang Guang. Just as they unlocked the safety and were about to pull the trigger to shoot, Tang Guang suddenly opened fire. Just as they were about to pull the trigger and shoot, the dagger in Tang Guang's hand instantly swept across the three men's necks and blood splashed out. He then kicked the three men sideways and heavily smashed them several meters away. Seeing that Zhuo Qing quickly covered the eyes of the two children, Tan Xiu indifferently said, Tang Guang, don't use such bloody means in front of the children in the future. Throw their corpses out. If anyone tries to stop you, just kill them. Chapter 953. The black youth got up from the bench and glared angrily at Tan Xiu. Just as he and his men pulled out their pistols and aimed at Tan Xiu, Tang Guang's cold voice sounded, put away your guns if you don't want to die here. I already told you that guns are just toys in my eyes. They're useless. Arrogant! Shouted the black youth. A chilling light flashed in Tang Guang's eyes as the dagger instantly hit his wrist. As the pistol fell to the ground, the delicate-looking woman bounced a few times and appeared in front of the 7 or 8 big men. A silver thread swept out from her palm and the 7 or 8 big men's hands that were holding the pistols were directly cut off and fell to the ground along with the pistols. In a flash, all the stowaways in the entire cabin looked horrified. They looked incredulously at Tang Guang and the delicate woman and their heartbeats accelerated. At the cabin door, the lean middle-aged man holding the machine gun suddenly raised his head and indifferently said, Go outside on the deck if you want to fight. I hate the smell of blood, but I don't mind creating a bloody scene. Tan Xiu glanced at the wailing black youth and his men, shook his head and said, Since Boss Snakehead doesn't like the smell of blood, let's not make things difficult for him. Little old hay, I don't care where you come from or what your background is. Just remember that I'm the one you can't afford to provoke on this ship. If you want to live, then stay here obediently. The black youth glared viciously at Tan Xiu and gritted his teeth as he sat back on the stool. However, he was full of dread toward Tang Xiu since he was perfectly aware of the strength of his men. Each and every one of them was an expert who could fight and fight. Any one of them could easily knock down a group of ordinary people if they were to face them. However, they didn't have the slightest strength to fight back in front of the man and woman. They had already pulled out their guns, yet they were easily dealt with by the other party. Experts. Very powerful experts. Zhuo Qing didn't expect that the situation would take such a dramatic turn. On one hand, she was grateful to Tan Xiu for giving her child candy and chocolate. On the other hand, she was worried that he would be bullied. However, she didn't expect the real ruthless person to be that handsome and kind-hearted young man. At this moment, she stole a glance at Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu keenly noticed that Zhuo Qing was peeking at him. He smiled at her and said, Thank you. It's fate that we met. I'll protect you and your son along the way. Zhuo Qing said gratefully, Thank you. Originally, she had heard that the process of smuggling was not very safe. Now that she had seen it with her own eyes, she was even more worried. She was afraid that something bad would happen to the stowaway ship. But when she heard Tan Xiu's words, her uneasy heart relaxed a lot. However, she vaguely felt that Tan Xiu looked somewhat familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. However, no matter how hard he thought about it, he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. After a long while, Zhuo Qing suddenly summoned her courage and looked at Tan Xiu, asking, Do you know Zhuo Dequan? Zhuo Dequan? No, I don't. Tan Xiu shook his head. Disappointment flashed in Zhuo Qing's eyes. Her father used to be very famous in China and had a very deep network of contacts. If he hadn't provoked a powerful family, her father wouldn't have fled China and lived a concealed life abroad. This time, her husband's family was defeated and he died in a bizarre car accident, so she had no one to rely on in the country and could only take her 2 children abroad to seek shelter with her father. However, in order to avoid being followed by her enemies and to find her father who was hiding abroad, she could only take her twin sons and smuggle them to Saipan through a few brothers who were close to her father in his early years. From there, they took a cargo ship to country T from Saipan. Tang Guang, who returned to Tan Xiu's side, looked surprised and whispered, "I know a man named Sua Daquan, boss. I've met him before. But I don't know if he's the same person I know." "Who's this Sua Daquan guy?" asked Tan Xiu. "He was very famous in the southern provinces in the early years," Tang Guang said in a low voice. "He may not be an omnipotent figure, but I think he's a very powerful figure. He's a businessman with a big business, and he's always involved in almost any business that can make money. However, he offended the Huang family in Fukang more than a decade ago, so he gave up most of his family's business and fled abroad." "The Huang family?" A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he asked, "What happened?" "I don't know the specific details, but senior sister Xiao Xue should know about it," said Tang Guang. Tan Xiu took out his mobile, but then remembered that he was at sea and there was no signal at all, so he got up and walked to Zhuo Qing's side. After sitting cross-legged, he took out 2 pieces of chocolate and handed them to them. Then, he looked at Zhuo Qing and said, "Anyways, you're idle, so tell me about your father and the Huang family." Zhuo Qing's expression drastically changed. She hugged her 2 sons tightly and looked at Tan Xiu with fear in her eyes. Then, she asked in a trembling voice, "Didn't you just say that you've never heard of this Zhuo Daquan? How do you know about him and the Huang family?" "I haven't heard of him, but my men know something about him," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Zhuo Qing glanced at Tang Guang and hesitated for a while before asking, "Who are you? Are you from the Huang family?" "Don't misunderstand me. I'm not from the Huang family." Tan Xiu waved his hand. Only then did Zhuo Qing relax a bit, but she still vigilantly asked, "You haven't told me who you are yet." "Well, let me introduce myself a bit," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I'm Tan Xiu, Tang as in the Tang dynasty, and Xiu as in self-cultivation." "How should I address you?" "I'm Zhuo Qing," answered Zhuo Qing. Suddenly, a light flashed in her mind and a look of disbelief appeared on her face. She exclaimed, "I remember now. You're the young divine doctor, Tan Xiu." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I never thought I'd be so famous. I never thought I'd meet someone who knows me on a stowaway ship in the vast sea." Zhuo Qing recognized Tan Xiu and the fear in her heart immediately dissipated. Although it was her first time seeing Tan Xiu, the name of this young divine doctor was like a thunderclap reverberating in her ears. Most importantly, all the reports about him were positive. So, he should be a good man. "They're your sons, aren't they?" Tan Xiu smiled. "They're very cute twin brothers." Zhuo Qing bitterly nodded and said, "They're my sons. It's just that something happened to our family, so only the 3 of us are left. I didn't expect to see you here, Divine Dr. Tang. I've often heard of your great name." "You're welcome." Tan Xiu waved his hand. "Tell me about your father and the Huang family. I think you should be very clear about the whole story." "Since you guessed that Zhuo Daquan is my father, then I won't hide it from you," said Zhuo Qing in a low voice. "More than a decade ago, when I was less than 20 years old, my father had a conflict with the Huang family in Fukang province due to some business issues. As a result, my father suffered a big loss in the fight. In a fit of rage, my father secretly sent his men to seriously injure the current patriarch of the Huang family, Huang Jinfu's younger brother. At first, my father thought that the Huang family was only very strong, but he believed that he could contend with them by relying on his ability. But who would have thought that the Huang family's strength was far beyond my father's imagination? In the end, his men were either killed or crippled, and many of my father's businesses were robbed by the Huang family. Had it not been for my father's quick escape, I'm afraid he would have been killed by them." Tang Xiu suddenly understood and asked, "Your father should have started from scratch and worked hard to build a foundation, right?" "That's right." Zhuo Qing nodded. My father used to be poor and came from the countryside. Later on, he relied on his own ability to own hundreds of millions of yuan. Hence, his character gradually became arrogant and conceited. Eventually, he provoked people he couldn't afford to offend. I don't think the Huang family will hold a grudge against the enmity of the past until now. Tan Xiu nodded. So the three of you went to sea this time to seek shelter with your father? My husband had a bizarre car accident not long ago, and our family's business suddenly went bankrupt. Zhuo Qing nodded. Although I guessed that it was the Huang family's doing, there was nothing I could do. Furthermore, I was afraid that the Huang family would retaliate against me if I continued to stay in the country, so I could only escape with my 2 children. The Huang family is too ruthless. They simply want to exterminate us. I'm very curious, though. Since the Huang family knows that you're in the country, why didn't they retaliate against you for more than a decade and only took action now? Asked Tan Xiu. That's because my husband was drunk and revealed my identity at the table, said Zhuo Qing helplessly. I was in boarding school in the early years, and my father was afraid that he would offend too many people if his business was too big, so he concealed my existence. That's why the Huang family didn't find me. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and sighed. It seems that the retribution for the sins your father committed in the past has fallen on you. Since you've brought your 2 sons out, live a good life abroad. As for the Huang family, I'll take some time to call Huang Jinfu. I hope he won't pursue this matter anymore. You know the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu? Zhuo Qing was surprised. That's right. We do know each other. Tan Xiu nodded. Divine Dr. Tang, you won't tell the Huang family where we 3 are going, right? Zhuo Qing suddenly asked nervously. Don't worry. Tan Xiu could see Zhuo Qing's worry and lightly smiled. I rarely poke my nose into other people's business. But since fate brought us here today and I have some friendship with the Huang family's patriarch, I'll help you while I'm at it. But remember, no matter how your husband died or how your family went bankrupt, don't ever think about revenge in the future. The Huang family is not an existence that ordinary people can provoke. Don't let your children's hearts be filled with hatred. Chapter 954. We're already satisfied to be able to live safely. How can we still think about revenge, said Zhuo Qing bitterly. Now, I just hope that the Huang family can completely disperse the resentment in their hearts and stop looking for trouble with us. Tan Xiu looked at the cabin door and asked aloud, Boss Snakehead, how long will it take for the cell phone to get a signal? The lean middle-aged man glanced at Tan Xiu and said, We'll arrive at the island where we'll switch ships midway in 4 hours. We can get a cell phone signal there. But not just anyone can make a call. Either you let me make a call, or you let me slaughter all of you, said Tan Xiu lightly. The choice is yours. The lean middle-aged man squinted his eyes and deeply observed Tan Xiu for a long time. Then, he silently nodded and said, Your men are very strong and we don't want to easily provoke them. But remember, we'll never meet again after you leave this cargo ship. I understand. Tan Xiu nodded. Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, it was noon the next day. After a day of sailing, the cargo ship smoothly arrived in Manila. As the signal was restored, Tan Xiu dialed the cell number of the Huang family's Huang Jinfu in front of Zhuo Qing. Mr. Tang. Huang Jinfu's slightly surprised voice came out of the phone. How have you been, Patriarch Huang? Asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Thanks to you, I'm fine, said Huang Jinfu with a smile. May I know what Mr. Tang wants me to do? There's something I want to ask for a favor from you, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Anything, Mr. Tang, said Huang Jinfu hurriedly. As long as it's within my Huang family will definitely go all out. You should know about Zhuo Dequan, right? Tan Xiu said. I have a friendship with Zhuo Dequan's daughter, Zhuo Qing. I learned about the grudge between you, so I wanted to be a peacemaker. Huang Jinfu, it's been a long time since that incident happened. Don't you think it's time for you to let it go? Huang Jinfu was silent for a moment and then said with a forced smile, Mr. Tang, my Huang family will never pursue this matter again. As for my brother, I'll suppress him. Tan Xiu asked, your brother was injured back then. How is he now? Huang Jinfu bitterly said, I'm permanently disabled and have been lying in bed for more than a decade. If it wasn't for our Huang family spending a lot of effort to keep him alive with medicine, I'm afraid he wouldn't have been able to hold on. I'm abroad now, said Tan Xiu. Find time to bring your brother to see me after I go back. Leave the problem of his disability to me. You can cure my little brother. No, I spoke too much. Mr. Tang, your medical skills are superb. No symptoms can stump you. Don't worry, when you return to the country, I will immediately prepare a generous gift and pay you a visit with my younger brother. Huang Jinfu said excitedly. There's no need for gifts. It's good enough that you're here. Well, I have nothing else to say. That's it. After Tan Xiu finished speaking, he directly hung up the phone. When he was talking to Huang Jinfu, he had been using the loudspeaker, so Zhuo Qing could hear Tan Xiu and Huang Jinfu's conversation clearly. At this moment, although she was shocked by Tan Xiu's ability to make the Huang family's head of Fukang province, Huang Jinfu, respect him so much, she was more happy that the Huang family put down the grudges of these years and no longer sent people to hunt them down. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang. Zhuo Qing thanked him from the bottom of her heart. It's just a small issue that can be easily solved. Tan Xiu waved his hand. Let's go. We're going to change ships. We still have a long way to go. Zhuo Qing held the two children's hands and followed behind Tan Xiu to board another cargo ship. Just as they sat in the cabin, she said, Divine Dr. Tang, can you give me your contact number? Although my father fled to Tea Country in the past, his business here has been flourishing after so many years of development. I'm sure he'll be very grateful to you for helping us so much. That's right, if you don't have a place to stay in Tea Country, you can stay in my father's manor. The environment there is very good. Manor? What kind of business does your father have in Tea Country now? Asked Tan Xiu curiously. My father has a lot of businesses, but he lives in a coconut grove. Zhuo Qing smilingly said, it's August now, the season for coconuts to mature. You'll definitely be able to eat the most delicious coconut meat and drink the most delicious coconut juice if you come with me there. Is it in Bangkok? Asked Tan Xiu. It should be in the suburbs of Bangkok, about an hour's drive from downtown, answered Zhuo Qing. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, if that's the case, then we'll go with you. However, we have a very important thing to do in Tea Country this time, so we must keep our whereabouts a secret. I know. Zhuo Qing nodded and said, otherwise, you wouldn't need to sneak in with your identity. I'll call my father after the ship docks and ask him to send someone to pick us up. Giving roses to others will leave a lingering fragrance in the hand. Tan Xiu nodded and smilingly said, it seems that this saying is true. Looks like this saying is true. I didn't expect that I would find myself a temporary place to stay after helping someone casually. You're the young divine doctor of our country, and also a figure respected by tens of thousands of people, said Zhuo Qing smilingly. It should be our honor to be able to help you. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, no need to be so polite between us. We're about to set sail. You should hurry up and eat something, then rest well. No one knows what's going to happen next, so the most important thing is to rest well. On the riverbank. More than 100 kilometers away from downtown Bangkok, there were large plantations here. Many rich bosses owned large manors here. In a large manor with a good location and convenient transportation, Zhuo Dequan, who was wearing a flowery coat and a gold chain with an ivory pendant hanging on his chest, stood next to a swimming pool in front of a Western-style building. His square face was full of worry. Boss, still no news. A muscular young man strode over from afar and said respectfully. Zhuo Dequan frowned and asked, "Is there any news from Huya and Snake Boy? Didn't they say that all the snakeheads along the way have been dealt with?" The young man forced a smile and said, "Something happened to Baboon. He seems to have offended a very powerful family and was thrown into the sea to feed the fishes. Therefore, we have no way to contact the snakeheads along the way after his line of communication was cut off. However, Huya and Snake Boy are organizing people to search for the young lady's whereabouts. You can rest assured that I'll inform you once I find them." "What a waste. You can't even handle such a trivial matter," Zhuo Dequan angrily rebuked. "Do remember that if my daughter and my 2 grandsons encounter any danger along the way, you'll have to bear the consequences as well." "Understood." The young man hurriedly nodded. Zhuo Dequan took out a cigar, lit it, and took 2 deep puffs. Then, he sighed and said, "Little Qing didn't enjoy much good fortune with me. She studied in a boarding school when she was a child and sometimes I didn't see her even once in half a year. When she grew up, she ran into someone I offended and fled the country. She finally stabilized after a decade, but I didn't expect that she would still be implicated by me. If I had the ability, I would have already gone back to the country and annihilated them. The Huangs have a deep foundation and countless experts, boss," said the young man hurriedly. "It's already not easy for us to evade their investigation. Don't even think about retaliating against them." "I was indeed impulsive back then and directly attacked the Huangs," said Zhuo Dequan helplessly. "But they still won't let me off even though I've fled abroad. Do you think I don't know how powerful the Huangs are? But they're the ones who won't let us go." The young man fell into silence. He knew that Zhuo Dequan was right. He would have done it long ago if he could resolve the enmity between the 2 sides. However, the younger brother of the Huang's patriarch, Huang Jinfu, was crippled for life. It was already good enough for him to live until now. Even if they wanted to resolve the enmity, the Huangs would never agree to it. Zhuo Dequan waved his hand in annoyance and said, "Forget it. We'll just deal with the situation as it comes. The Huangs are very powerful in Fukang and also have a lot of power in China. But this is tea country, Bangkok, and I'm sure their tentacles won't be able to reach here. You go and continue to investigate Qing's whereabouts for me. You'll immediately come to rescue her once you find her." "Understood." The young man replied and left in strides. Zhuo Dequan smoked a cigar and stood next to the swimming pool, praying silently. "Qing, you and your mother must be safe, else you'll have to live in pain for the rest of your lives." The next day, a cargo ship was anchored on the shore of the Chao Phraya River. Several men stealthily communicated with the staff on the shore, and soon, 40 to 50 stowaways on the ship left at a very fast speed. Tan Xiu didn't ask Zhuo Qing to contact her father. Instead, he asked Tang Guang to stop several taxis and then everyone rushed to the address given by Zhuo Qing. "There's a tail behind us, boss," Tang Guang suddenly said in a low voice. Tan Xiu instantly released his spiritual sense and found that there was indeed a black SUV following them. Moreover, one of the men in the car was the black youth's subordinate. "And, deal with the tail behind us." Tan Xiu's spiritual sense easily found Tangan, who had been following them on the roof of the car, and sent her a voice transmission. Bam! With a loud roar, the black SUV behind them suddenly overturned and crashed into a shop on the side of the street. As for the men in the car, they were all severely injured. Nearly 2 hours later, 3 taxis were parked at the gate of a manor. 4 security guards in black uniforms and batons quickly came to greet them, and Tan Xiu and the others also got off the taxis. "Who are you?" asked a man from Tea country. Zhuo Qing was apparently proficient in the Tea language. She held her 2 sons' hands and greeted them, saying, "I'm Zhuo Qing, and Zhuo Dequan is my father. Please inform them that I'm coming with my 2 children." "Miss?" The security guard's eyes lit up and a bright smile immediately appeared on his face. Chapter 955. Inside a spacious and bright Western-style building, Sua Daquan was smoking a cigar while calmly reading the financial statements in his hand. His business had recently encountered some troubles, especially the gold mine he controlled. The extracted golden sand had been smelted into gold, but the gold price had plummeted, causing the sales to stagnate. It was a very depressing issue for him, who was in dire need of cash. "Boss, Kanaja sent someone to urge us again." A middle-aged man with an unprepossessing appearance, but his eyes gleamed with wisdom. He came in from the outside with a briefcase under his arm and reported with a helpless expression. Sua Daquan slapped the table and angrily said, "Damn it, when the roof leaks, it rains overnight, and when the ship is late, the wind hits the head. There are only 6 days left before we return the money to Kanaja, but how can the gold price rise in 6 days? How can a big buyer appear in 6 days?" Kanaja said that he agreed to pay the debt with gold, said the middle-aged man with a forced smile. "But he said that we need to pay the debt according to the current market price of gold. He's looting a burning house." Sua Daquan angrily retorted. "That's right. He's indeed looting a burning house," said the middle-aged man. "But there's no other way for us to pay the debt with gold. Almost all the liquid funds from other businesses have been drawn out. But we still need more than 80 million to repay Kanaja's debt." Sua Daquan's expression was cloudy and uncertain. He didn't dare to owe Kanaja money because he knew the man well. If he were to offend him, it would be worse than offending the Huang family. Although the Huang family had tried to kill him in the dark and even destroyed many of his businesses, they didn't dare to act blatantly. After all, the law in China was very restrictive. But Kanaja was different. He had great influence in Bangkok and was a ruthless and merciless person who swallowed both the black and the white. He was definitely a lunatic who would eat people without spitting out their bones for the sake of profit. Ring, 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 on the table, a cell phone suddenly rang. Sua Daquan took a deep breath and directly picked up the phone. "What's up?" he asked in a deep voice. "Boss, young miss has arrived." The voice of the Manor's security captain came out of the phone. Sua Daquan stared blankly for a moment before his expression drastically changed. Although he needed to solve Kanaja's debt, his daughter and 2 grandsons were the most important things to him at the moment. As long as they could arrive here safely, he was willing to pay the debt with gold at a low price. "Bring my daughter here immediately. I'll wait at my place." After hanging up, Sua Daquan looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Tell Kanaja that I'll pay the debt within 6 days. If we really can't take out cash, we'll pay with gold." Finished. He hurriedly ran outside and shouted at the top of his lungs, gathering a group of subordinates nearby to prepare a grand welcome for his daughter. 6 or 7 minutes later. 4 sightseeing cars were parked in the small square outside the courtyard of the Western-style house. Sua Daquan immediately saw his daughter and 2 grandsons. With a pleasantly surprised expression on his face, he dashed forward and hugged Sua Qing excitedly. "Qing, I'm completely relieved that you came here safe and sound. You've worked hard. It's all my fault. I've let you suffer so much and suffer so much." Sua Qing hadn't seen her father for 6 or 7 years. She finally felt relieved after being hugged by her father. Her tears couldn't stop flowing as she sobbed, "It's not your fault, Dad." Sua Daquan released Sua Qing and shook his head. He then glanced at the 2 children beside his daughter and immediately squatted down, saying, "Are they Yang Yang and Daodu? This is the first time I've seen them since they were born. I'm not a competent grandpa." "Yang Yang, Daodu, quickly greet Grandpa," said Sua Qing hurriedly. "Grandpa." The 2 children very sensibly called out. Sua Daquan nodded with satisfaction. He pulled their little hands and said, "Good children. You're all good children. Let's go. Grandpa will immediately send someone to cook delicious food for you. Qing, you've worked hard all the way here. Take a hot bath and have a good rest." "We encountered a lot of trouble on the way here, Dad," said Sua Qing. "It was Divine Dr. Tang and the others who saw the injustice and protected us. Let me introduce them to you. This is Divine Dr. Tang, and the others are his men and friends. Only now did Zhuo Dequan notice the group of people behind his daughter. He immediately furrowed his brows and glanced at them a few times. Then, he walked to Tan Xiao and warmly said, "Hello, Divine Dr. Tang. I'm Zhuo Dequan. I'm very grateful to you for helping my daughter. I just happened to meet her, so I did what I could," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "You don't need to be so polite with us, Boss Zhuo." Zhuo Dequan's eyes lit up and he smilingly said, "Anyhow, we're friends since you've helped my daughter. Let's go inside and have a chat. Divine Dr. Tang not only helped me, but he also helped you, Dad," said Zhuo Qing. Zhuo Dequan stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression, "He helped me? How did he help me?" Divine Dr. Tang has a deep relationship with the Huang family's patriarch of Fukang province, Dad, said Zhuo Qing. "When we were at sea, Divine Dr. Tang heard about the enmity between you and the Huang family, so he personally called the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu. I heard that Huang Jinfu personally promised that the enmity between you and him would be written off." The smile on Zhuo Dequan's face instantly disappeared without a trace and was replaced with vigilance and killing intent. He shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and asked, "Divine Dr. Tang, may I know where you're working?" "You don't need to be vigilant against me, Boss Zhuo. I have no hostility toward you," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Tan Xiao, and I'm known as the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital in China. Of course, I also have another identity. I'm a businessman just like you. May I know what business Mr. Tang runs?" asked Zhuo Dequan. "It's the Magnificent Tang Corporation," answered Tan Xiao. Zhuo Dequan's heart skipped a beat and he cautiously said, "I've heard about the Magnificent Tang Corporation. It's a dark horse that suddenly appeared in China's business circle. It's mainly engaged in cosmetics, health products, drinks, and the like. The world-famous manager, Kang Xia, the financial genius of Wall Street in M country, is the general manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation." "Don't tell me you're..." "That's right. I'm the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, and Kang Xia also works for me," said Tan Xiao with a smile. A monstrous wave surged inside Zhuo Dequan's heart. He never imagined that the Magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss would appear in his place one day. What was even more strange was that he had smuggled himself into Bangkok just like his daughter. Something was wrong. Zhuo Dequan's heart thumped. Tan Xiao's identity was extraordinary, and it was absolutely easy for him to come to Bangkok. There was no need for him to smuggle himself here. "Mr. Tang, there should be a very secretive reason for you to come to Bangkok all of a sudden, right? Else, it wouldn't be a problem for you to come to Bangkok openly given your identity. Maybe the leaders of Bangkok and even countless businessmen will treat you as a distinguished guest," said Zhuo Dequan in a low voice. "That's right." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "I do have a secretive reason for coming here. Else, I wouldn't have met your daughter on the way here. Of course, we can leave now if you're afraid that we'll bring you trouble." Countless thoughts flashed in Zhuo Dequan's mind. Finally, he let out a light smile and said, "Mr. Tang is a guest from afar, so it's a must for me to entertain you with good wine and dishes as the host. However, if Mr. Tang and everyone else have something to do, then I won't force you to stay." Zhuo Qing, who stood at the side and listened to her father's words, hurriedly said, "What are you talking about, Dad? Divine Dr. Tang has helped me and also helped you. They have just arrived in T Nation and are unfamiliar with this place. Please let them stay here. In any case, don't you have a lot of guest rooms here?" "Nonsense." Zhuo Dequan's face sank. He glared at Zhuo Qing and said, "Mr. Tang must have something important to do in T country. How can they stay here for a long time? All right, take the two children to wash up, change into clean clothes, and have a good rest. I'll send someone to call you when the meal is ready." Zhuo Qing opened her mouth and was about to speak again. Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt Sua Qing and smilingly said, "You're right, Boss Sua. We do have something important to do. Our mission is done now that we've sent Miss Sua here. We still have some matters to attend to, so we'll take our leave first." "You can't go, Divine Dr. Tang," said Sua Qing hurriedly. Sua Daquan grabbed Sua Qing and sternly shouted, "You're too insensible, Qing, Divine Dr. Tang has something important to do and naturally can't be delayed. I'll welcome them to stay here at any time after they're done with their business." Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and nodded to Sua Qing. Then, he led everyone back to the sightseeing bus and left the manor under the escort of the 4 security guards. Sua Qing's face turned pale and she angrily shouted, "Why? Divine Dr. Tang not only helped me but also helped you. Why did you force them to leave? Don't you know how honorable Divine Dr. Tang is in the country? Countless people want to invite him as a guest, but he might not even agree. You're just messing around, Qing, Sua Daquan coldly snorted. "If that surnamed Tang has nothing to do with the Fukang province's Huang, I'd naturally welcome them to stay here. But he knows the Huang family's patriarch, so who can guarantee that he's not a jackal of the same lair as the Huang? It's already very inappropriate for you to bring him here. If you keep him here and he attracts the Huang's people, I'm afraid we'll all die without a burial place." Sua Qing stared blankly and shook her head. "That won't happen. Divine Dr. Tang will never help the Huang to deal with us. Who knows what he's thinking?" Sua Daquan sneered. "Also, don't you think it's strange? He's the young Divine Doctor of China and the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss. Why would he need to smuggle himself into tea country? Today's monthly votes increased by 400, so I'll add one more chapter. The number of new followers on this public account has yet to meet the requirement. Brothers and sisters, work hard _. Chapter 956. Sua Qing was dumbfounded as she stared at her father, Sua Daquan. She was stumped by his series of questions and was rendered speechless. She didn't even think about this issue when she was drifting at sea. She had always been worried about her own safety. But at this moment, she finally realized that Tan Xiao's purpose in coming to Bangkok in tea country was probably very problematic. Could it be that he also got into trouble in the country? Just as the thought emerged, Sua Qing immediately shook her head to deny it. Tan Xiao was the young Divine Doctor of China and the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss. He even had a deep relationship with the Huang family of Fukang province. Who in China could force him to leave his home country? In that case, there was only one possibility left: he had secretly snuck into Bangkok, and there was definitely a big secret behind it. But what was that secret? Countless thoughts churned in Sua Qing's mind, yet she couldn't figure it out. Only when her father patted her on the shoulder did she give up thinking. Sua Daquan retracted his eyes from the direction where Tan Xiao and the others left and said in a low voice, "Don't let your imagination run wild. Just wash up and take a rest." Sua Qing nodded without a word. She no longer blamed her father for not taking Tan Xiao in. She was now tired and sleepy after rushing all the way to Bangkok. She really needed to take a hot bath, eat something, and then rest comfortably. Ring, ring, ring. Sua Daquan had just arrived at the Western-style building with his daughter and grandson when his cell phone rang. When he took it out and picked up the call, the voice of the manor's security captain came out. "Boss, Mr. Tang wants to borrow 2 cars. He said that it's more convenient to do things in Bangkok." Sua Daquan pondered for a moment and then said, "Give him 2 cars, but change the license plates in advance." "Tell Mr. Tang about the license plates." "Understood," the security captain respectfully replied. Outside the manor, the burly security captain put away his cell phone and looked at Tan Xiao, saying, "I'll immediately send 2 cars here, Mr. Tang. But you need to pay attention to the license plates." "I understand." Tan Xiao nodded. Not long after, 2 black SUVs stopped in front of Tan Xiao and the others. Two big men jumped out of the driver's seat and quickly handed the keys to the security captain. When it was handed over to Tan Xiu again, he nodded and said, "I wish you a pleasant journey, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu said, "Thank Mr. Zhuo for me." On the straight road in the suburbs, two black SUVs were speeding toward the downtown area. Xingluan and Tang Xiu were sitting side by side in the back seat of the second black SUV. His eyes were filled with anger as he indignantly said, "You've helped them so much, Mr. Tang, yet they don't even want us to live in that manner. It's really hateful of them. After I become the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan, I'll definitely teach him a lesson and let him know the taste of regret." Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, "I can understand why he doesn't want us to stay." Zhuo Dequan was a meticulous man. On the one hand, he was worried that I would join hands with his enemy to plot against him. On the other hand, he was also suspicious about our purpose in coming to Bangkok. Had it been me, I wouldn't have rashly given shelter to strangers. Forget it. It's already benevolent of him to give us 2 cars. "I really don't understand your way of thinking, Mr. Tang," sighed Xingluan. "I'm even more confused about your character. You're absolutely ruthless when facing your enemies, but you're always very open-minded when it comes to this kind of situation. I even found that you're actually a kind and good person sometimes." "You mean I have a fickle character?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "That's right." Xingluan nodded. "There's an old saying in Huaxia that a man is born with a good nature," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Kindness is a person's conscience, the bottom line of the deepest part of their heart. With the growth of age and the improvement of their abilities, they will have to face a lot of people in their lives, and there are countless of them. You must help the weak and kind, but you must be ruthless when you encounter a fierce and powerful enemy. I'm born with a good heart, but there are too many cruel people out there. There's another saying in Huaxia that killing a bad person can save countless good people." "So, you're a good person?" asked Xingluan. "I'm not a good person, but I don't do bad things." Tan Xiu shook his head. Everyone had a scale and a ruler in their hearts. Everything they did needed to be measured. "Remember, Xingluan, good will be rewarded, and evil will be repaid. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. Even if you become the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan in the future, you must never bully the weak. When you have a good heart and learn to help others, you'll find that it's actually very interesting. Also, there's a saying in Huaxia that everyone pushes the wall when it's down, and 10,000 people beat the drum when it's broken. Once you do evil things when you have the strength, there will be countless people who hate you to add fuel to the fire when you're down in the future. But if you're kind to others, there will be countless people who will help you when you're down in the future." A thoughtful look flashed in Xingluan's eyes. After a long time, he silently nodded and said, "I think I understand what you mean, Mr. Tang." Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and then looked at Tang Guang in the front seat, saying, "Let's hurry up and find a place to stay for the time being. At the same time, pay attention to our whereabouts to avoid being discovered." If my guess is correct, Xinghuo will probably use other forces to find Xingluan's whereabouts since he wants to deal with him. He's likely to find the Darkwind organization and Bangkok's local tyrant, Kanaja. "Jin sure may have a way to find a safe place to stay, boss," said Tang Guang. "Why do you say that?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "As far as I know, Jin sure once carried out a mission in Tea Country and stayed there for a long time, so he knows the situation here very well," said Tang Guang. "Also, given his character, he'll definitely have his own safe place to stay." Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Jin Shu's cell number. After the call was connected, he asked, "Where are you, Jin Shu?" "We've arrived in Bangkok, boss. We're on our way to the place I once stayed in Bangkok. Are you going to rendezvous with us? Or?" Jin Shu's voice came out of the phone. "Tell me the address." "We're going there now," said Tan Xiu. "Daewang District, Feather Palace Hall," said Jin Shu. "That's it for now. We'll contact you again when we get there," said Tan Xiu. Do remember to pay attention to your whereabouts and never expose yourself. Bangkok downtown. The Zhanchuan Manor covered a large area with buildings that were connected together. The interior was overgrown with lush vegetation and the environment was incomparably beautiful. There were small bridges, flowing water, rockery, and gardens, especially the small artificial lake and the pavilion in the middle of the lake. At the lakeside, Kanaja, wearing a sun hat and white casual clothes, sat quietly on the shore while fishing with a fishing rod in his hand. Two beautiful girls accompanied him and were responsible for serving him tea and water. Songzan sat quietly at the side, silently reading a stack of documents. "I'm done, big brother." Finally, Songzan closed the documents and spoke with a respectful look on his face. Kanaja looked back and calmly said, "Since you're done, then go to the clubhouse and stay there. You must stay in the clubhouse for 3 years and take care of it for me. Once the 3-year period is up, you'll take over the Daewang district." Songzan silently nodded and said, "Please spare my life, big brother. This Songzan is willing to be loyal to you forever. I'll carry out any order you give me." "You'll have to sharpen your eyes when you recruit younger brothers in the future," sighed Kanaja. "Don't put those with obvious flaws in an important position, else you'll be implicated. That Mr. Tang's background is too big. I've already sent several groups of people to Hua Xia to investigate his identity. In the end, those people never returned, and there's no news of them. If my guess is correct, I'm afraid they're all dead. Hence, I can only kill everyone who knows about this matter in order to keep it a secret. Only you are left alive. Don't let me down again, Songzan." Songzan recalled a young and handsome face. His heart suddenly trembled and he respectfully said, "I won't let you down, big brother." At this time, a burly man led more than a dozen people from the distance. The leader of the group was the Dark Shaman clan's young master, Sinquo. "Kanaja." Sinquo's expression was indifferent as he came to Kanaja's side and called out. Kanaja turned around and immediately put down the fishing rod in his hand after seeing Sinquo. He smilingly said, "Young Master Sinquo, you're a rare guest. Why did you come here today? Is it because your father hasn't seen me for a long time and asked you to invite me to have a drink with him?" "My father has been in seclusion recently," Kanaja, said Sinquo with a smile. "He rarely takes the initiative to contact outsiders. The reason I'm here is because I need your help with something." "What is it?" asked Kanaja with a smile. "I won't refuse as long as it's within my means. We're friends, after all." Sinquo took out a few photos and handed them to Kanaja, saying, "I want you to send someone to help me find these people. They may not be in Bangkok now, but I hope your men can find them once they step into the city and pass the message to me." Kanaja took the photos. As his eyes swept over them, a glint flashed in his eyes. He was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "That's a trivial matter. I'll give the order right away. If so, I'll have to trouble you, Mr. Kanaja." Sinquo nodded. "I'll treat you to a few drinks after this matter is over." Kanaja responded with a few words and then watched Sinquo leave. He casually threw the photos to the ground and stepped on them. Then, he sneered and said, "I, Kanaja, have been around for so many years that I know who I can provoke and who I can't. Your Dark Shaman clan is indeed very strong, but it's very difficult for me to help you for no reason. Besides, this is your clan's internal strife, and you even dragged that fiend into it." Songzan picked up the photos and looked at them. His expression slightly changed and he said in a low voice, "It's Mr. Tang, big brother. The game of exchanging monthly votes and new WeChat followers for monthly votes can continue. Quiet Night will automatically erupt as long as the requirement is met every day. Brothers and sisters, you can do it. Quiet Night is going all out this month." Chapter 957. I finally understand why Tang Xiu is with the Dark Shaman clan. It turns out that he wants to help Singluan defeat Sinquo. Kanaja sneered. Kanaja sneered. Looks like there's going to be a good show in Bangkok soon. Though I don't want to intervene in their affairs, it's still good if I can get some benefits from it. Songzan's expression moved and he respectfully asked, "What do you think, big brother? Pass these photos to our men to keep a close watch on all parts of Bangkok. Report to me at once they find traces of Tan Xiao and Singluan," said Kanaja. "It should be a pleasant surprise for me if we can make good use of this matter." Songzan praised Kanaja. He knew that the man was a shrewd and astute man. Since he could see the benefits in this matter, it was likely that he would spare no effort to carry it out. But, he didn't know whether Kanaja would be inclined to help Singquo or Tan Xiao and Singluan. "Do I still go to the club for the time being, big brother?" Songzan was a bit tangled inside. He also wanted to get involved in this matter and hoped to get some benefits. But he was afraid that this matter would be too big and he would lose his life instead of getting any benefits. "Help me handle this matter first," said Kanaja. "Inform me at once you find traces of Tan Xiao and Singluan in Bangkok. Also, inform your men not to clash with them. Tell them that you're Kanaja's men if they find you ahead of time." "Understood." Songzan replied and turned to leave. At the Feather Palace Club in Daeungwang District. After Tan Xiao, Singluan, and the others arrived, they were led to the innermost part by the club's general manager. To Tan Xiao's surprise, the Feather Palace Club turned out to be a club with a variety of programs. The most popular programs were equestrian archery, painting, casino, and boxing gyms. "This general manager knows me, Mr. Tang. Wouldn't it be too easy to expose our whereabouts if your men sent us here?" asked Singluan in a low voice beside Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows. He thought for a moment and said, "Jin Shi has always been a cautious man. I've told him to keep our whereabouts confidential. So, I think this manager should be trustworthy." "Even if the manager is trustworthy, the staff of the Feather Palace Hall may not be as trustworthy," said Singluan in a low voice. "As far as I know, many of Kanaja's men like to spend time here. I once clashed with Kanaja's men here. Although I didn't suffer any losses in the end, I didn't get much of an advantage either." Tan Xiao's eyes looked around and whispered, "We shouldn't be discovered. Just pay attention to the route we're taking. It's not the main road to enter the inner area. The surroundings are covered with trees, so the route is quite hidden. Didn't you notice those people around you? They are not ordinary guests who come here for leisure. They are clearly the security guards of this club." Singluan hadn't noticed it earlier, but now that he heard Tan Xiao's words, he realized the situation and immediately relaxed a lot. In the depths of the club, the European-style garden building surrounded by high walls looked particularly imposing. Outside the courtyard was a 5-meter-wide river, and the cement road leading to the courtyard gate was 7 to 8 meters wide. On both sides of the gate, there were 4 middle-aged men in black uniforms. They held machine guns in their hands, and their expressions were exceptionally cold. Boss Jin Shi, Moo, and the others had been waiting outside the courtyard gate. Upon seeing Tan Xiao's group coming, they immediately greeted them respectfully. Immediately, the complexion of the 4 middle-aged men stationed on both sides of the courtyard gate changed and shock could be seen in their eyes. Even the middle-aged manager had a look of disbelief on his face. "You already know the purpose of our trip, as well as the secrecy we need," said Tan Xiao lightly. "Is this Feather Palace Club a suitable place for us to stay?" "The Feather Palace Club is registered in our headquarters, boss," said Jin Shi respectfully. "I established it when I was on a mission in Bangkok. I don't usually manage it, so I handed it over to Taylor to manage. This is Taylor, a trustworthy man. As for these 4 men, they are all the people I've trained in the past and they are absolutely loyal to me." Tan Xiao nodded. His eyes glanced at Taylor, the manager, and then shifted to the 4 middle-aged men. Then, he said, "Since they are trustworthy, then we'll stay here for the time being. Let's take a rest first. We'll go out tonight." "Mr. Tang, we'll?" asked Singluan hurriedly. Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt him and lightly said, "We're going to see the person in charge of the Dark Wind organization in Bangkok tonight. We need to buy some information from him. As for the operation, we'll talk about it later." "Alright, I'll listen to you." Singluan nodded. The interior of the 3-story garden building was extraordinarily luxurious. There were 4 maids, 1 man and 3 women, who were responsible for taking care of the affairs here. According to Jin Shi, only a few people were qualified to come here, but those who could come here were all his benefactors. Tan Xiao wanted to help Singluan become the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan as soon as possible and get more demon stones, so he immediately went to find Singluan after settling down. Inside the study room. Donned in a black robe and wearing a bronze mask, Tang'an rarely appeared in front of outsiders. She personally brewed tea and quietly waited at the side. Tan Xiao drank a cup of tea and said, "I need to know more about your Dark Shaman clan, Singluan. I also need to know the forces you have in your clan, as well as the armed forces under your big brother's control. These are very important. Only by knowing the enemy and yourself can you win every battle." "As far as I know, the Dark Wind organization has deeply infiltrated my Dark Shaman clan," said Singluan. "A member of the Dark Wind organization was found in an incident a few years ago, so it should be the right choice to look for them. I've sent some people to secretly investigate my big brother over the years, but I believe the forces under his control are definitely more than what I've investigated." Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and then nodded. "Then let's buy some intelligence from the Dark Wind first. You'll be the one to compare and figure out how many armed forces Singluan has under his control. Further, my suggestion is to only get rid of Singluan and his confidants. As for the other armed forces of your Dark Shaman clan under his control, it's best not to touch them if possible. After all, you'll take over these forces once you become the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan in the future." "You're right. My big brother and his confidants are my biggest enemies," said Singluan. "But we have to guard against my father for now." Tan Xiao sighed. "You must prepare for the worst since your father favors your big brother. Also, I killed your big brother to help you, but you must be aware of one thing. What should I do if your father blames me for killing your big brother?" Singluan's eyes gleamed. He had never considered this issue before, but now that Tang Xiu mentioned it, he instantly realized that given his father's character, it was very likely that he would bear this hatred on Tang Xiu's head. At that time, his father might not kill him, but it was very likely that he would attack Tan Xiu. Furthermore, Tan Xiu was naturally not a pushover. Once his father attacked Tan Xiu would definitely not sit still and wait for his death. At that time, his father would most likely be killed by Tan Xiu. With such a situation in mind, Singluan immediately said, "Please spare my father's life if he really blames you, Mr. Tang. If it doesn't work out, you can also abolish his cultivation. I'll be able to control him in the future as long as he loses his cultivation, so he won't bring you any trouble in the future." "It seems like that's the only way, then." Tan Xiu nodded. Late at night. In the Bangkok branch of the Dark Wind organization, a few ghostly figures arrived silently. Without alerting anyone, they appeared outside the bedroom door of the branch's director. Knock, knock. The knocking on the door awakened Charlie, who was sleeping in the bedroom. He reached under the pillow and instantly grabbed a handgun and deftly unlocked the safety. Charlie was a very cautious man, but at the same time, he was also a very timid person. He had been advancing step by step and acting cautiously all these years to become the chief supervisor of the Bangkok branch of the Dark Wind organization. Therefore, all of his subordinates knew his habits. Unless something big happened, no one would come knocking on his door after he went to bed late at night. Even if something big happened, they would only call him and ask to see him on the phone. "Who is it?" Charlie's muzzle was aimed at the door as he shouted with killing intent all over his face. His voice was loud and clear. Only then did the Dark Wind martial artists who were in charge of security in the surroundings realize that someone had broken in and rushed out from all directions. "Tang Xiu, Singluan, Moo, and Tang Guang stood outside the bedroom's door, allowing tens of stalwart men armed with guns to surround them and aim their black muzzles at them. "It's very presumptuous of us to visit you so late at night, Mr. Charlie, so I hope you won't be angry or worried," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "We're here because we have a big deal to make with your Dark Wind organization." "Who are you?" asked Charlie in a deep voice through the door. Tan Xiu's group of 4 wore bronze masks to conceal their identities. Upon hearing Charlie's inquiry, Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "It's not convenient for us to expose our identities, Mr. Charlie. Besides, you don't need to know who we are. I just told you that we're here to make a deal with you. What we need is information, but what you need is money. As long as we pay you enough money, all you have to do is give us the information." Charlie was silent for a moment and then shouted, "Are you there, Yale?" Among the people surrounding Tan Xiu's group, a strong man replied in a deep voice, "We've got them under our control, Sir Charlie. You can come out at ease." Charlie was relieved, but he still raised his gun and carefully opened a gap in the door. As the muzzle was the first to poke out of the door, he saw the scene outside through the gap in the door, and secretly let out a sigh of relief. Chapter 958. After Charlie appeared in front of Tang Xiu's group of 4, he coldly observed them. He had also encountered such mysterious people who hid their faces and identities, but he had never encountered such a guest who made him shudder with fear and trepidation. His back was now drenched in cold sweat. Since these people could sneak into this place without a sound, they also had the ability to sneak into his bedroom and directly kill him in his sleep. Recently, it was an eventful period. 2 days ago, the Dark Wind branch in Saipan was directly destroyed and all the Dark Wind members in Saipan were secretly killed. Although the ultimate suspect was the highest official in Saipan, he had no motive to do so. Furthermore, what left the top brass at a loss was that the highest official went to the sea for vacation and never came back alive. Perhaps these people in front of me have the ability to destroy a regional branch. The thought flashed in Charlie's mind. His heart tensed up again and he asked in a deep voice, "You guys are very powerful. You can actually hide from so many people of our Dark Wind organization and secretly lurk outside my bedroom. However, I want to know your purpose in coming here. If it's just to buy information, I'm afraid you don't need to sneak in here. No one will stop you even if you come through the door openly." Pointing to the bronze mask on his face, Tan Xiu lightly said, "The reason why we sneaked in here is to hide our whereabouts. Also, I don't think it's necessary for you to act like you're facing a formidable enemy. You won't have the chance to fight back if we want to kill you. Isn't that a good proof of that?" Charlie was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded and waved his arm, saying in a deep voice, "All of you withdraw first. You're not allowed to come over without my order." "Understood." Tens of strong men quickly left, leaving only the middle-aged man called Yale behind. He stood vigilantly beside Charlie to guard against any sneak attack from Tan Xiu's group. "Gentlemen, can you wait for me in the living room first?" said Charlie. "I'll come to see you right away after I change my clothes." "No problem." Tan Xiu nodded. A few minutes later, after changing his clothes, Charlie came to the living room and looked at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa and drinking tea. He then smiled and said, "May I know your name, mister?" "You can call me Tang." "He's Xing," said Tan Xiu lightly. Charlie glanced at Singluan and immediately nodded. "Mr. Tang, Mr. Singluan, what information do you want to buy by visiting so late at night?" As the world's largest intelligence agency, our Dark Wind organization pays attention to the happenings in every corner of the world. I'm in charge of the intelligence gathering in Bangkok, so you can rest assured that there will be no mistakes in our intelligence. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I've long heard the name of the Dark Wind organization. Since Mr. Charlie wants to talk business now, I'll be straightforward. We need information about the Dark Shaman clan in T country, especially the strength of the Dark Shaman clan's young master, Xingguo. The more details, the better. Charlie's expression moved and he suddenly looked at Singluan. He grinned and said, maybe I already know Mr. Singluan's true identity. Young Master Singluan, did I guess wrong? Singluan's expression slightly changed. He slowly took off the bronze mask on his face and indifferently said, you guessed it right. I'm indeed Singluan. Also, I can guess that my big brother has probably visited you recently. His purpose is to buy information about me. It's very likely that he wants to know whether I'm in Bangkok or not. Clap, clap, that's right. Your big brother, Mr. Sinquo, did come here and bought information about you from us. Charlie applauded and said, it's a pity that our Darkwind organization's intelligence network can only determine that you've left Bangkok and even Tea Country. As for where you've gone, we have no way to find it. Mr. Charlie, you've guessed my big brother's purpose, so you must also know that there are some things that your Darkwind organization can't meddle in, said Singluan. We're here to buy information from you. Name a price and I'll pay it right away. Charlie pondered for a moment and said, the information our Darkwind organization can provide you is definitely worth the price. Singluan took out his mobile phone and said, I'll transfer the money directly to your account. Tan Xiu waved his hand to stop Singluan and lightly said, if my guess is correct, your big brother should have checked all your accounts in Tea Country, so he should be able to find the flow of funds in your account very quickly. $8 million is just a small amount, so I'll pay for it. After saying that, he transferred $8 million to the account given by Charlie using his mobile phone. After that, he said, we've paid the money, Mr. Charlie. Just give me the information you need. Also, I believe your Darkwind organization must have a good reputation since it can become the world's largest intelligence agency. I don't like the deal between us, yet you sold it to others like how you sold Sinquo. Charlie stared blankly for a moment before his expression drastically changed. Only now did he realize that he had leaked the secret of his client's purchase information when he talked with Tan Xiu and the others. Moreover, he didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be aware of this issue and use it to remind him. It's my mistake. Please rest assured. I'll never sell the information you bought about the Dark Shaman clan to others, said Charlie with a solemn face. Of course I understand that your guarantee is just a joke if there are enough benefits involved. Tan Xiu couldn't deny it and said with a smile, but I hope you can understand that the Dark Shaman clan is an internal struggle. If some external forces want to meddle in the internal strife of the Dark Shaman clan and try to get more benefits, they will only end up with a bleak end. The Dark Shaman clan is a very special clan. Charlie nodded and said, I know that I won't easily meddle in it. Quickly. The information Tan Xiu and Singluan needed was delivered. After receiving it, they didn't stay any longer. They didn't even leave through the main entrance but quickly disappeared into the darkness. Even though Charlie had sent his men to monitor them, they still couldn't find out how they left. Sir Charlie. Yale, who was standing behind Charlie, called out in a low voice while looking at the dark corner outside through the window. Charlie came back to his senses and said in a deep voice, immediately trace the account that transferred the money. I need to know who that person is. Also, inform the HQ that there's a dispute within the Dark Shaman clan in Bangkok. It's very likely that there will be an internal strife or large-scale battle in the near future. Understood. Yale replied and strode outside. Charlie stroked his chin and his eyes flickered. He quickly thought about some powerful figures, but he couldn't find any of them that could be related to the bronze-masked man. Whether it was the man's age, stature, or terrifying strength, there was nothing he could use as a reference. Half an hour later, Yale returned to Charlie's side and respectfully said, Sir Charlie, our men have checked it. The transfer account is an anonymous Swiss bank account, so there's no way for us to trace the person's true identity. Also, I've sent your instructions back to the organization's HQ. The order I received is to act according to the circumstances. If there's a profit to be made, do something, but don't cause unnecessary trouble for the Darkwind organization. Charlie deeply furrowed his brows and said, although I've already guessed that the transfer account is an anonymous Swiss bank account, I didn't expect that these people are so strange that they can come and go freely here. It seems like there are still a lot of loopholes in our security measures. Yale, help me build a new security monitoring system. Make sure to lock down the entire encampment. In the future, no one can sneak in without a sound. Yes. I'll do it right away. Yale agreed and turned to leave the room. Charlie turned around and walked to the table. After pulling open a drawer, he took out a black booklet and quickly flipped through a few pages. Then, he picked up his phone and dialed a phone number on it. Not long after, a deep voice came from the phone. What is it? 20 million USD, and I'll sell you another piece of information. I believe this information must be very important to you, Charlie said with a hint of pride in his tone. All right, I'll get someone to transfer the money right away. Charlie smiled and said, after receiving the money, I'll immediately send the information to you. Finished. After hanging up the phone, Charlie smugly returned to the sofa and sat down. As he lit an authentic Cuban cigar, he complacently muttered to himself, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Although the Dark Shaman clan was a bit strange, it was a must even if it meant taking a little risk to obtain benefits and merits. Consider this 20 million US dollars as my reward for my hard work. I'm afraid you won't be able to spend it even if you have the life to earn it. Suddenly, a faint wind blew and a cold voice came from behind Charlie. At the same time, a sharp dagger was pressed against his neck. The hand holding the dagger only needed to tremble slightly to tear a fatal wound on Charlie's neck. Who's there? Charlie's body turned stiff and a chill ran down his spine in an instant. He rarely encountered such terrifying things, and it was even more rare for him to feel fear. But at this moment, he could keenly feel that he was so close to the Grim Reaper. Tang En's figure appeared and coldly said, it seems that you have quite a lot of money in your private account. I'll give you a chance to live. Transfer all the money in your private account to my account, else I'll kill you right away. I'll transfer it. I'll transfer it right away. Tang En sneered. Please don't kill me. I have a lot of money. I can give it all to you. A lot of money? Tang En sneered. I'll still kill you if the amount doesn't satisfy me. Chapter 959. Charlie grabbed his mobile with difficulty and transferred more than 200 million US dollars to the account given to him by Tang En through online banking. After demonstrating that there was no money in his personal account, he bitterly said, I didn't see your face clearly, miss, nor do I know who you are. I may have lost a lot of money, but I only want to save my life. Consider the money in your personal account as an apology. Tang En sneered. Not only will you die next time if you dare to betray us again, but all your relatives will also die. Don't think that my boss won't dare to kill you just because you're a member of the Dark Wind. As long as the price is high enough, let alone you, even your relatives and friends will be ruthlessly killed by countless people. Charlie gulped down hard and said with a trembling heart, yes, yes, yes. You're right. I'll never dare to betray you again. I still need you to play a show to prove your words, said Tang En with satisfaction. Whether you want to live or not depends on your performance. What show? Asked Charlie hurriedly. Did you just call Sinquo, the young master of the Dark Shaman clan? Asked Tang En, are you going to tell him that we're here to buy information? That's right, said Charlie bitterly. I want to make some money in private, so, Tang En coldly interrupted him and lightly said, Charlie, you have no idea how powerful the person you want to betray is. If you do, I'm afraid you won't dare to do anything out of line even if I give you 20 billion US dollars. What I need you to do is to tell Sinquo that Singluan has returned to Bangkok and that he's hiding in a coconut plantation more than 100 kilometers away. The plantation is southeast of downtown Bangkok, and the owner is a man named Zwa Daquan. I know Zwa Daquan. Do you have a feud with him? asked Charlie in surprise. You don't need to care about that. Just tell Sinquo everything I told you, said Tangin coldly. Also, I want you to understand that Sinquo will surely die. I'm afraid that only death awaits you if you want to do him a favor. Charlie could already sense how mysterious and terrifying this person was. Hence, he could only brace himself to write down the information and then send it to Sinquo via the internet. I'm done. Can you let me go? Charlie moved his fingers away from the keyboard and looked back as he spoke. To his surprise, there was no one behind him. Illusion? Impossible, that woman really did exist. However, the doors and windows in this room were closed. They had not been opened at all. How did she get in? How did he leave? Could she be a ghost? Charlie wiped the sweat off his forehead and got up to check every corner of the room. After confirming that there was no one else in the room except for him, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He walked to the sofa and collapsed on it. The feeling of being on the brink of death just now was so real and so frightening that he still had lingering fears even now. I can't meddle in their affairs anymore. Even if Sinquo gave me a mountain of gold, I can't meddle in their affairs anymore. Singluan and the mysterious people around him were just too terrifying. If they wanted to kill me, it would be as easy as flipping their hand. The group of trash around me would be completely useless. After Charlie figured this out, he immediately felt a lot more relaxed. Dewang District, Feather Palace Clubhouse. Tan Xiao had just returned to his room with a stack of documents. His expression slightly moved and he asked, "Have you done what I asked you to do?" Tang Yin's body twisted and appeared in front of Tan Xiao out of thin air. She then respectfully said, "It's all done, Grand Master. As you said, Charlie wants to get more money from Sinquo, and he's going to use it as his own private money. Hence, I forced him to pass on what you asked me to do to Sinquo. The Dark Wind organization is indeed the largest intelligence organization in the world, but it's full of money and interests." Tan Xiao sneered. "There are too many people in this organization, and there's bound to be crooks mixed in with honest folks. Their promises are nothing compared to a fart." "Well, Charlie has quite a lot of private money, Grand Master," said Tang Yin with a smile. "I forced him to transfer all the money he deposited in a Swiss bank to my account. I'll transfer the money to your account later, with a total of $240 million. What? Tan Xiao stared blankly and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Why do I feel like all my men have turned into bandits? Extorting money every time we deal with an enemy? A smile outlined on the corner of Tang Yin's mouth as she said, "We're short on money, Grand Master." You're short on money to buy cultivation resources, aren't you? Tan Xiao snappily asked. That's right. Tang Yin nodded. We need a lot of resources for cultivation, especially medicinal pills, so we must find a way to get more money to buy medicinal pills from the HQ. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Tan Xiao chuckled. You must spend money to buy cultivation resources. The Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't pay you much every year, but you're all capable people, so you can indeed get a lot of money. Forget it. I don't care about you as long as you don't kill the innocent and rob the weak. Just keep the money for yourself. We'll have more and more people in the future, and cultivation resources will become more and more scarce. It's not a bad idea to buy more now. Thank you, Grand Master, said Tang Yin happily. You don't have to be so polite with me. Tan Xiao waved his hand. But don't keep the money to yourself. Give some to your brother after you've bought the cultivation resources. I found that he has nothing else to do other than cultivating and having women. My brother is a freak, said Tang Yin helplessly. He's used to spending money extravagantly. I've been giving him money all these years. Then urge him to find a housekeeper as soon as possible. Tan Xiao chuckled. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll have to support him for the rest of his life. Tang Yin clenched her fists and solemnly said, I'll urge him to find me a sister-in-law as soon as possible. All right. Go rest. Tan Xiu chuckled. I need to study the information about the Dark Shaman clan and formulate an action plan. Do you want me to go to the coconut plantation, Grand Master? Asked Tangin suddenly. You've set the trap there. Zhuo Dequan's men won't be able to stop them if Xingguo goes there overnight. I'm afraid that Zhuo Qing and her 2 children will also be in danger. There's no need for you to go there now. Tan Xiu shook his head. I'll draw up the action plan later and personally lead my men there. Also, I've already sent Jin Shi and the others to the Dark Wind branch. I'm sure they won't be able to harm Zhuo Qing and her 2 children even if Xingguo's men arrive earlier than us. At the Dark Shaman clan's ancestral land. Xingguo hurriedly put on his coat and strode out of a building. When he came to the Dark Shaman clan's gate, dozens of people had gathered around him. All of them were dressed in black and held magic staffs and some cold weapons. More than a dozen cars came from a distance and stopped at the gate. Xingguo and his men immediately boarded the cars and sped away. A few minutes later, the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan, Xingchuo, silently appeared at the gate. His eyes were cold as he pulled out a sharp dagger and flung it to the left. Suddenly, a mass of black mist quickly appeared on his left side. Behind the black mist was a white-haired old man who reached out and caught the dagger. Keep up with him. Xingluan may not have much ability, but he's still my son. If Xingguo really wants to kill him, you must save Xingluan at his most critical moment. What if Xingluan defeats Xingguo and becomes the final winner? Asked the white-haired old man. Do you think Xingluan can defeat Xingguo? Xingchuo shook his head. I don't think it's possible. The white-haired old man shook his head. But nothing is absolute in this world. There may be some unexpected changes and unexpected situations. Besides, Xingluan seems to have found a group of helpers from China. Although we don't know their strength, there are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in China. If the helpers he found are very powerful, I'm afraid Xingguo will suffer a loss. Xingchuo raised his hand to touch the bridge of his nose. A thoughtful look flashed in his eyes as he nodded and said, What you said makes sense. China does have too many powerhouses, so we have to guard against them. Alright, take the 13 shaman guardians with you. You should be able to deal with them even if there are some unexpected changes. The white-haired old man nodded. He took the dagger and turned into a cloud of black mist again, quickly disappearing from Xingchuo's sight. At the coconut plantation. Zhuo Dequan was quietly leaning against the window, overlooking the dark scene outside. His heart was filled with a gloomy haze even though the woman came with his 2 lovely grandsons. Moreover, as time passed by, a sense of restlessness that hadn't appeared for more than a decade grew stronger inside his heart. More than a decade ago. It was thanks to this magical sixth sense that he was aware of the danger brought by the Huang family ahead of time. Thus, he escaped in advance and was eventually saved from being killed by the Huang family. But this time, the feeling was much more intense than a decade ago. It was as though the Grim Reaper's scythe was on his neck, making him feel panicked and suffocated. What exactly is the reason? Zhuo Dequan kept thinking about it, but his final conclusion was that the upcoming danger was probably related to Tan Xiu, who came with his daughter today. It was highly likely that it was related to the Huang family. No, I can't just sit still and wait for death. I must make arrangements in advance. First, I must send Qing, and the 2 kids away. Then I'll escape from here and observe the situation nearby. 4:00 in the morning. After Zhuo Dequan secretly sent his daughter and grandsons away, the feeling of trepidation in his heart grew more intense. It was as though he was being stared at by a viper that could bite him at any time. And that bite was enough to be fatal. Chapter 960. Old Ange. When Zhuo Dequan appeared in another manner more than 10 kilometers away, a 50 to 60 years old foreigner received the news and appeared in front of him. Boss Zhuo, it's very rare for you to come to my place at this time, asked Old Ange with a puzzled expression. Did something happen here? Old Ange, can you let me take shelter here? Asked Sua Daquan with a solemn expression. I have a feeling that I'm being watched by someone, and I have a hunch that my manor won't be peaceful tonight. Old Ange was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, You saved my life and helped me several times, so I'll help you this time. But you know that I'm not as strong as you, and I only have a dozen men under me. Old Ange, letting me hide here is already the biggest help you can give me, said Sua Daquan gratefully. I won't thank you first, but I'll definitely thank you if I can get through this crisis safely. There's no need for such politeness between us, Boss Sua, said Old Ange. I have a secret room here where I used to hide things. Why don't you and your men hide there for a while? I won't tell anyone who comes to my place. I don't want to hide, Old Ange. Sua Daquan shook his head and said, I'll stay here and see who's looking for trouble with me. Else, I won't be able to eat or sleep well even if I can hide tonight. That's right, can we go up the water tower? I need to go up there. Old Ange was stunned and slapped his forehead. Oh, I forgot that the water tower is actually a good hiding place. Let's go. I'll take you there myself. You'll hide in the water tower. It looks very unsafe, but it's actually the safest place I have. 10 minutes later. Sua Daquan led dozens of his men to climb the water tower. The space above was very small, so the rest stayed below except for a few of his confidants. Waiting anxiously wasn't a good feeling. A middle-aged man with a pair of binoculars had a slightly changed expression and immediately reported, Boss, I found a convoy heading towards our coconut plantation. There are 13 cars in total, and each car is full of people. Sua Daquan's expression changed. He reached out to grab the binoculars and observed the convoy. At this moment, his eyes seemed to be able to spurt out flames as he cursed in a low voice, What bullshit, young divine doctor? What bullshit, magnificent Tang Corporation? He, Tan Xiao, did not want to live a good life and became a dog of the Huang family. The enemy this time should be the Huang family, and the Huang family was led here by him. At the side. The plain-looking middle-aged man put down the binoculars in his hand and said, Boss, he doesn't look like a Chinese, so he shouldn't be a member of the Huang family. Although the people in the cars were unfamiliar faces, he could still tell that they should be people from Tea country. Moreover, when I looked around just now, I didn't see Tan Xiao or those people who came to our coconut plantation today. Sua Daquan stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and said, I don't have any major enemies other than the Huang. The other party obviously came with malicious intent this time, and I can't think of anyone else who wants to kill me aside from the Huang family. But if it's the Huang family, I don't think Tan Xiao would be so stupid to come here with Miss ahead of time since it would alert the enemy, said the middle-aged man. Sua Daquan furrowed his brows and thought for a while before he nodded and said, What you said makes sense. However, the convoy has already stopped at the entrance of our coconut plantation. If they are not the Huang family's people, then where are they from? Are they Kanaja's men? Unlike them, I only have a loaning relationship with Kanaja and there's no enmity between us. He won't take the initiative to be my enemy. The middle-aged man nodded. Just as he raised the binoculars again to observe the scene in the distance, his expression suddenly shifted and he said, Boss, did you notice that those people's attire is very strange? The most important thing is that they seem to be holding cold weapons in their hands. That's strange. Sua Daquan's brows furrowed deeper and the puzzled expression on his face turned more intense. If these people wanted to attack him with cold weapons, then there was only one possibility, they were all martial artists with great strength. On the sparse Bangkok highway, two shabby buses were moving fast. Tan Xiao was sitting on the second bus. After receiving a call from Jin Shi, a surprised look appeared on his handsome face. He didn't expect that Sua Daquan would have the ability to foresee the future. He sent his daughter and grandson to another place overnight, while he took a group of his men to hide in a nearby manor. There's traffic police blocking the road ahead, Grand Master. Suddenly, Tang Guang, who was sitting in the front, came over and reported in a low voice. Is this normal? Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and asked. I know a bit about Bangkok. Tang Guang shook his head and said, traffic police won't block the road for no reason unless there's a major incident here, especially at 4 a.m. You mean, they're coming for us? Asked Tan Xiu. It's very likely. Tang Guang nodded. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then, he suddenly turned to Xingluan and asked, can you deal with the traffic police in front? It shouldn't be a problem, but I'm afraid our whereabouts will be exposed, said Xingluan hesitantly. The forces in Bangkok are very complicated, and every traffic police officer may be an informant for others. However, I know someone who can help solve this problem as long as he doesn't leak our whereabouts. Who is it? Asked Tan Xiu. Kanaja, answered Xingluan. Tan Xiu frowned. He came to Bangkok secretly this time and didn't want Kanaja to know about it. Kanaja had a good friendship with Xingluan's father. Xingluan's father was now partial to Xingguo, and if Kanaja told Xingluan's father about his arrival, it was very likely that Xingguo would soon receive the news. Is there no other way? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. No. Xingluan shook his head. Tan Xiu was a bit disappointed. He didn't expect that Xingluan's ability was so poor that he couldn't even solve this problem. After hesitating for a while, he decided not to contact Kanaja for the time being. It wouldn't be too late to contact him if he really had a conflict with the traffic police. 2 buses stopped in front of the police cordon. Tan Xiu didn't let Xingluan get off the bus, but appeared in front of several traffic police officers with Tang Guang. With a smile on his face, he said, hello, you guys. You're still resting so late at night. Is it too hard for you? The middle-aged traffic police officer looked at the 2 buses a dozen meters away from them. His eyes then fell on Tan Xiu and said, it's indeed hard for us. But we must obey the orders from the top. Who are you? We need to check your vehicles. Tan Xiu quickly took out 2 stacks of US dollars from his interspatial ring and quickly stuffed them into the middle-aged traffic police officer's hand. He then lightly smiled and said, you've worked hard, so I'll give you a reward. These tens of thousands of US dollars are for your hard work. We're in a hurry, so do you think you can make things convenient for us and let us pass directly? The middle-aged traffic police officer hurriedly returned the money. He then took out his mobile phone and asked, are you Mr. Tan Xiu, Tan Xiu? How do you know my identity? Tan Xiu's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice. Please don't misunderstand me, Mr. Tang, said the middle-aged traffic police officer. I was entrusted by someone to tell you something. A powerful man named Xingguo is looking for your whereabouts. Also, more than a dozen cars passed by here more than an hour ago, and the man named Xingguo should be in those cars. May I know who entrusted you? Asked Tan Xiu with a frown. Kanaja, answered the middle-aged traffic police officer in a low voice. How did he know that I'm coming to Bangkok? Asked Tan Xiu with a slightly moved expression. Mr. Kanaja guessed that you would ask this question, so he asked me to explain it to you, said the middle-aged traffic police officer. Mr. Xingguo met him recently and wanted him to help investigate your whereabouts. Therefore, Mr. Kanaja's men are now everywhere in the streets and alleys of Bangkok. In fact, Kanaja already knows your residence yesterday evening. However, it's inconvenient for him to see you in person, so he could only use this method to ask me to pass the message to you. Kanaja is really resourceful. I didn't expect that he would be able to find our whereabouts so quickly, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. It seems that he's more powerful than I thought. Tell him that I, Tang Xiu, will remember this favor, and I hope he can personally bring his men to our destination later. Tang Xiu said with a smile. I'll immediately pass your message to Mr. Kanaja, said the middle-aged traffic police officer. Tan Xiu returned to the car with a cold light flashing in his eyes. He had indeed underestimated Kanaja's ability in Bangkok, but the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and he had no choice but to fire it. Therefore, he could only hope that Kanaja didn't tell Xingguo about his whereabouts, else the following ambush wouldn't be so easy. At the coconut plantation. Sinquo parked his car nearby with 40 to 50 of his trusted men and quietly approached the manor. Then, he climbed over the wall and sneaked inside. In the garden, more than a dozen very vigilant wolfhounds didn't notice the many murderous humans in the black mist floating in front of them. When are we going to act, young master? Wait. Let's find out the situation inside first. Sinquo was very cautious. Even though he bought the information from the Darkwind organization, he was still very cautious for fear of falling into the enemy's trap. A few days ago, he sent his men to investigate Tan Xiu's identity, and the results of the investigation made him secretly dread. He wasn't afraid of his good-for-nothing brother, Singluan, but he was afraid that Tan Xiu had an expert following him. Who is it? Suddenly, an angry voice was heard as a handgun opened fire. Jin Shi, who was disguised as Sui Dequan's subordinate, immediately fled after firing. In just a few breaths, he disappeared from Sinquo's and his men's sight. Catch him! Sinquo shouted without hesitation since he wanted to figure out the situation inside the coconut plantation. 5 updates for 3 consecutive days. Begging for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and the WeChat public account _. Chapter 961. Sporadic gunshots reverberated over the coconut plantation. Each gunshot was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, reaping the lives of those who were targeted. In just a few minutes, 6 murderous men were sniped and killed, lying in pools of blood. God damn it! Sinquo could only watch helplessly as the mysterious sniper kept killing his men. His eyes seemed to be able to spit out fire. His angry expression turned ferocious, and his killing intent became more intense. He had investigated his younger brother, Singluan, and found that there was no such a powerful sniper among his men. It was because the other party had been sniping the assassins he recruited from all over the world, not the cultivators of his dark shaman clan. Boss, the sniper's marksmanship is too accurate and he keeps changing his position. We can't lock onto him, said Herdo, who was wearing a light-colored camouflage uniform and holding a sniper rifle. He used to be the ace sniper of the Golden Flame Mercenary Corps and had killed countless enemies on the battlefield. But now, he was suppressed by the enemy sniper and couldn't even lift his head. It made him feel very aggrieved. A cold light flashed in Sinquo's eyes. He was well aware of Herdo's ability, yet the enemy that he couldn't lock onto must be very powerful. Suspend the attack and immediately investigate the owner of this coconut plantation. I want accurate information within half an hour. A few kilometers away. Sui Dequan, who was hiding in the upper room of the water tower, was dumbfounded as he watched the scene in front of him through the binoculars. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that a gunfight would break out in his coconut plantation. Moreover, the mysterious sniper had forced so many enemies that they couldn't advance even half a step. Who is he? Sui Dequan put down the binoculars and turned to look at his trusted men around him. They exchanged dismayed glances and shook their heads at the same time, indicating that they didn't know. They were also extremely shocked, because they already dismissed everyone in the coconut plantation, so there was no one left there. Moreover, even though they were all formidable figures who had seen blood before, they couldn't do what that sniper did, killing with each shot, reaping a life with each bullet. He's definitely not one of our men, boss, said a middle-aged man in a low voice. Sui Dequan picked up the binoculars again and carefully observed the situation. Then, he said, the other party is hiding very well with the help of a bunker. Only a real expert can do this. If this matter has nothing to do with us, then we can only say that we are unlucky. Someone was hiding in our coconut plantation and we didn't discover him, but his enemy did. He came here late at night to seek revenge. The middle-aged man nodded and said, it's very likely, otherwise, bang bang, suddenly, gunshots rang out in the coconut plantation again. This time, it wasn't one person who fired, but 4 or 5 people at the same time. Most importantly, the people who fired weren't the dozens of people who arrived later, but the people who were originally in the coconut plantation. In an instant, the middle-aged man's face became particularly ugly, and even Zhuo Dequan had an incredulous look on his face. 4 or 5 people staying in his coconut plantation had overturned his conjecture, which was like a slap to his face. What's going on? What is going on with those people? Zhuo Dequan was completely dumbfounded. His hands holding the binoculars were trembling slightly. In the depths of the coconut plantation, Jin Shi, who was hiding in the window of the building, took off his headset and said in a deep voice, "Boss, and the others will arrive in half an hour at the latest. We'll stall the enemy as much as possible. We can't let them rush in, and we can't let them retreat. According to the intel sent by Boss, the enemies who came with Xingguo are all his trusted subordinates. Our mission will be half completed if we can get rid of them." A chilling light flashed in Mo Ao's eyes as he coldly said, "We could have directly killed them if it wasn't for Boss's order." That's right, where did Shueisha go? He didn't show up at the appointed place. Jin Shi looked around and shook his head. I don't know. I think there should be some unforeseen event, else Shueisha wouldn't have left the appointed place so easily. Whoosh! A figure flickered and instantly appeared beside the 2 men. Shueisha's eyes gleamed with killing intent as he said in a low voice, "A group of mysterious people appeared near my position. They should be experts of the Dark Shaman clan. They're hiding in the dark, and some of them are a threat to me. They should be Xingguo's men who secretly arranged to ambush us." Jin Shi coldly snorted. "Shueisha, you're responsible for keeping an eye on them and notify us immediately once they make a move." Mo Ao raised his pistol and coldly snorted. "Our current mission is to stall for time and wait for Boss's team to come. So warn them and let them know that we've found them." Having said that, he fired several shots at the place where Jin Shi was hiding in the southeast direction. Then, he quickly moved and appeared next to another window. In the southeast direction, behind the lush shade of the trees, more than a dozen ghost-like black shadows were shrouded in black mist. Their faintly discernible aura caused the surrounding air temperature to drop by several degrees. The white-haired old man, Xingli, was shrouded in a black robe. His eyes seemed to penetrate the darkness and see the hidden danger in the building ahead. Humph! As several bullets were shot in his direction, Xingli waved his long sleeves and a few clouds of black mist instantly wrapped the bullets and floated 4 to 5 meters away from him. "Get out of here. They've found our whereabouts." Suddenly, more than a dozen ghost-like figures retreated and disappeared behind the shade of the trees without attracting anyone's attention. Time passed bit by bit in the stalemate. Half an hour later, 2 buses stopped on the highway 5 kilometers away from the coconut plantation. As Tan Xiao and the others got off, tens of experts secretly trained by Xingluan also quickly got off the buses and followed Tan Xiao and Xingluan toward the coconut plantation. Pay attention to hiding. As they approached the coconut plantation, Tan Xiao saw more than a dozen vehicles parked on the roadside, as well as several of Xingguo's men who were holding their guns and standing guard. Xingluan came to Tan Xiao's side and asked in a low voice, "What are we going to do next?" Killing intent flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he said, "Figure out their specific location first. I'll inform Jin Shi and the others in the coconut plantation. We'll attack them from both sides and kill Xingguo and his men as fast as possible. We can't let any of them escape tonight." Xingluan heavily nodded and said, "Those who came with us tonight are all Xingguo's confidants, so let's kill them all. Our strength has been progressing rapidly in recent days and we're at least several times stronger than before. Even if Xingguo has several old freaks guarding him, we'll make sure they won't be able to return today." Tan Xiao nodded and looked at Tang Guang. "Figure out the enemy's location, especially where Xingguo is hiding. Kill him if you get the chance. Come back and report to me immediately if you don't. We'll attack in 5 minutes. Understood." Tang Guang nodded. His figure turned into a sharp arrow and instantly disappeared into the darkness ahead. 2 minutes later, he returned to Tan Xiao and shook his head. Sinquo has a lot of experts around him, so I can't kill him with a sneak attack. Also, they're in the 11 o'clock direction. There are about 40 to 50 people in total. A few of them use guns, but most of them are armed with staffs and cold weapons. They should be experts of the Dark Shaman clan. I found more than a dozen enemies hiding in the dark in the 1 o'clock direction. They should be people of the Dark Shaman clan. Their aura is very weak and they hide very well. They should be more powerful than the experts around Sinquo. After saying that, Tang Guang grabbed a piece of paper and handed it to Tan Xiu. Then, he continued, "This is Dark Sketch. It's the face of the old man hiding in the 1 o'clock direction." Tan Xiu took it and looked at it. Then, he handed it over to Singluan and asked, "Do you know him?" Singluan's pupils shrunk as he looked at it. Hatred filled his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "I know him. There's no one in the entire Dark Shaman clan who doesn't know him. He's my father's right-hand man and also my third great-uncle. He's the second strongest expert in the entire clan. It seems my speculation is correct, Mr. Tang. My father is really on Sinquo's side. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to mobilize singly given Sinquo's identity. We've already guessed it before, so this is just confirmation," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "Sinquo will definitely die if he wants to kill you. If those people sent by your father also want to kill you, I'm afraid there's no benefit in keeping your father alive." Singluan hesitated for a moment and bitterly said, "He's my father, no matter what. He didn't come tonight, which means he doesn't want to kill me. Let's wait. I'll go back to the Dark Shaman clan myself after we get rid of Sinquo and demand an explanation from him." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly and nodded. "I understand. He's your father, after all. Killing your father will always be a pain that will never be erased. Let's deal with Sinquo's people first." 5 minutes had passed. Tan Xiu contacted Jin Shi through his mobile phone and issued an attack order. Immediately, Jin Shi and his men, who were hiding in the villa in the depths of the coconut plantation, stormed towards Sinquo's location lightning fast. They gave up on using their guns and unleashed their immortal swords. In just half a minute, they killed 6 or 7 of Sinquo's men who were observing them. "Bastards!" A hoarse voice rang out from the mouth of an old man in a black robe. Immediately after, he waved the magic staff in his hand and a layer of black mist gradually emerged around him. Slash! The black mist crazily condensed and instantly condensed into a 5-meter-long black saber. The surrounding space distorted and the black saber was shrouded in smoke as it fiercely slashed toward Mo Ao and Jin Shi, arriving in front of them in the blink of an eye. Rainbow-like sword. Break! Mo Ao took half a step forward and the immortal sword in his hand burst out with sword energy that stirred the black saber like a tornado. Chapter 962. The sword chi was sharp and powerful, but the black mist was extremely viscous and quickly condensed after being riddled with holes by the sword chi. However, its length was nearly halved and its power seemed to have plummeted a lot. Just as the black-robed old man was brimming with confidence that he could kill Mo Ao and Jin Shi at the same time, a sword chi suddenly shot toward him. Had it not been for his quick reflexes to block the sword chi with his staff, he would have been pierced by the sword chi. Bam! The staff inlaid with a gem exploded and the gem shattered into pieces and scattered all over the ground. The black-robed old man loosened his grip on the staff. The web between his thumb and index finger instantly turned numb and the blood in his body boiled. "Break," Jin Shi sneered. The immortal sword flew out of his hand and, wrapped in a circle of raging flames, bombarded the black saber. As the black saber turned into a black mist and finally dispersed in front of them, the immortal sword brimming with killing intent appeared in front of the black-robed old man the moment the flames burned. "Retreat!" At the same time, the 4 black-robed old men floated over and joined hands to lay a black chi wall in front of the immortal sword. At the same time, black bubbles quickly floated over from all directions and constantly exploded to form a black cyclone that acted as a hindrance. The moment the immortal sword pierced through the black chi wall, it was blocked in front of the 4 black-robed old men. A magic tool. The expression of the second black-robed old man on the left changed and a greedy look appeared in his eyes. He instantly dashed to the front of the immortal sword and wrapped his palm in a layer of black mist before he grabbed the hilt of the immortal sword lightning fast. Tens of meters away. Jin Shi was stunned and a strange look appeared on his face. The moment the black-robed old man grabbed the hilt of the immortal sword, his lips slightly moved and he instantly cast a technique. The immortal sword that he had been refining for nearly a year suddenly burst into a dazzling light. The fierce sword chi was wrapped in flames and instantly shot out in all directions from the immortal sword. The black-robed old man, who was standing close to the immortal sword, had his hand shrouded in black mist instantly burn. In the blink of an eye, it was burned to ashes. Pfft! The black-robed old man coughed up a mouthful of blood. In the face of this tragic turn of events, streams of burning sword chi instantly pierced through his body. In almost 1,000th of a second, his body was set ablaze, and just as the other black-robed old men pounced over, he was burned to a pile of ashes. Dozens of meters away. Xingguo watched in disbelief as his subordinates burned to ashes. The 5 guardian elders around him were the ones who had accompanied him since he was young. They had guided him in his cultivation and helped him grow to where he was now. If there were people he trusted the most, it would be the 5 elders. However, the second elder, who loved him the most and treated him the best, had died just like that. Xingguo clenched his fists tightly and his eyes were filled with rage. He pulled out a black machete from his waist and fiercely waved it as he roared, "Kill them! Kill those bastards! Remember, spare that bastard Xingluan's life. I want him dead. I want him to suffer pain and torture until he dies." Puff puff puff, as his voice fell, before the dozens of subordinates around him could make a move, the 7 or 8 people behind him had their throats slit silently and their hearts pierced. Enemy attack. A black-robed middle-aged man's complexion drastically changed. He hurriedly dodged to the side after his arm was cut off by a sword and shouted. Xingguo's complexion greatly changed. He suddenly turned around and saw more than a dozen figures behind him. His heart instantly turned cold. He saw Tang Xiu, Xingluan, whom he hated to the bone, as well as Xingluan's men. What was most difficult for him to accept was that he was horrified to find that Xingluan, his 5 guardian elders, and that delicate woman had a particularly strong aura. Kill them. However, Xingguo couldn't care less at this time. The death of one of his guardian elders was like adding fuel to the fire, making the flames burning in his heart burn even more intensely. A contemptuous look appeared on Tan Xiu's face. If it weren't for the fact that he had to prevent anyone from escaping and leaving any hidden dangers behind, let alone Xingguo and his men, even if they had twice the number and strength, they still wouldn't be able to kill them. After all, he was an expert who could fight against Golden Core stage experts, while Tang Guang and Tang An were also on par with Golden Core stage experts. Xingluan, I'll leave Xingguo to you and your men. Kill the rest and get rid of them as fast as possible. Tan Xiu coldly glanced at Xingguo and shouted in a deep voice. A hideous grin appeared on Xingluan's face as he led the delicate woman and the 5 black-robed guardian elders to aggressively charge at Xingguo. Xingluan and his men were originally no match for Xingguo and his men. But ever since they took the elixir Tan Xiu traded with them, their strength had improved by leaps and bounds and they were now slightly stronger than Xingguo and his men. Additionally, one of Xingguo's 5 guardian elders had been killed and the other 4 were entangled by Jin Shi and his men. Xingluan was absolutely unwilling to let go of such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Kill them all. The more you kill, the bigger the reward will be. I'm not a stingy person. Go all out if you want to reap the rewards. There will always be courageous men under the generous reward. Tens of Xingluan's men rushed forward one after another. Although they were a bit weaker, they had Tan Xiu and Tan Xiu's men with them. They were able to gain the upper hand in the battle. A few kilometers away, on top of the tens of meters high water tower, Zhuo Dequan was tongue-tied and dumbfounded at the scene in front of him. He could feel his heart pounding. He had seen some powerful characters in the past. For example, a few years ago, he had seen an ability user in action. That mysterious and unfathomable means were extremely powerful. However, the means used by that ability user paled in comparison to those who were fighting in front of them. They were not even worth mentioning. It was as though he was watching a magical blockbuster. No, it was even more wonderful than those foreign blockbusters. It was as though a group of immortals and a group of devils were fighting each other. The people in the battle were riding the clouds and riding the mist, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The bloody fight and the tragic atmosphere made him feel cold all over. Boss, it's Tang. A middle-aged man holding a pair of binoculars stood beside Zhuo Dequan and stammered. Speak properly, scolded Zhuo Dequan. I know you're shocked by the scene in front of you, but I'm sure that they're all humans with magical abilities. The middle-aged man gulped and hurriedly said, It's Mr. Tang, boss. He's the one who escorted Miss here. Zhuo Dequan's expression slightly changed and he asked in a deep voice, Where is he? The middle-aged man pointed in a direction and quickly said, Look over there. He's wearing black casual clothes. That's Mr. Tang. I still remember that he wore the same outfit when he came to our coconut plantation yesterday. Zhuo Dequan looked in the direction his subordinate pointed and carefully observed for more than 10 seconds. Finally, he saw Tan Xiao in the midst of the fighting. However, Tan Xiao looked inconspicuous at the moment and didn't display any terrifying moves. He just held a dagger with both hands and kept wandering in the crowd. Something's not right. Suddenly, Zhuo Dequan's pupils shrunk and a horrified look filled his eyes. Through his observation, he found that Tang Xiao's killing speed was much faster and more ruthless than anyone else in the battle, even though he appeared to be calm and indifferent. The two daggers were like the Grim Reaper's scythes that constantly swept the enemy's necks and pierced their hearts. In fact, when he was attacking, he would even lend a hand to help his own people, reducing their losses by a lot. I don't get it, boss, said the middle-aged man. Mr. Tang obviously left yesterday, so why did he and his men appear in our coconut plantation? You can see that our coconut plantation has become their battlefield. The buildings and coconut trees in our plantation have been severely damaged. We'll suffer great losses no matter who wins or loses if we keep fighting like this. The moment Zhuo Dequan saw Tan Xiao, he already understood the whole story. A wry smile appeared on his face and he helplessly said, I made a mistake. I really shouldn't have refused him to stay in our coconut plantation yesterday. Otherwise, this situation wouldn't have happened. He's indirectly retaliating against me. I don't get it, said the middle-aged man, confused. While observing the fight, Zhuo Dequan forced a wry smile and said, I was wondering why a dignified magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss would sneak into Bangkok. I even mistook him as a lackey of the Huang family and thought that he wanted to stay here and wait for a large number of experts from the Huang family to come here to deal with me. But now it seems that's not the case at all. He has enemies in Bangkok, and they're very powerful ones. Don't tell me you haven't recognized one of them. One of them is a familiar face. It's Xingguo, the young master of a mysterious family. It's very likely that Tan Xiao sneaked into Bangkok with his men to deal with him. Since he just arrived here yesterday, he should have no place to stay for the time being, so he accepted Qing Er's invitation and came here. Yet, I refused to let them stay here temporarily. Immediately. Several of Zhuo Dequan's confidants also understood the situation. They looked at him with a strange expression and were speechless for a long time. What did it mean to bring disaster to the innocent in the moat? The current situation was like a calamity to the fish in the moat, and it was the other party who deliberately implicated Zhuo Dequan and his men. If Zhuo Dequan had politely accepted them yesterday and let them stay here temporarily, this situation wouldn't have happened. What should we do now, boss? asked the middle-aged man in a low voice. What else can we do? Zhuo Dequan forced a wry smile. Just wait and see. The fight between these people is not something we can participate in at all. If Tan Xiu wins, I'll personally apologize to him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.